just do one. We've got extra.
We don't run out of those.
Well, it's been known to happen. Don't be second. You giving us two of them?
Hopefully they don't have to spell the lots.
It's one of those.
Just like it sounds.
I do. Yeah.
All the people's know that she's running. A lot of the rest of the culture. Now, why don't you give some police instructions? You know,
The top two for this slot are Adam and Diane. So, and neither one of them reached 16.
All right, let's go around again then,
between Adam.
between Adam and Diane Wasatch. And does anybody need another slip? I ended up with 2 or 3 of them
I think they gave us all three.
here. Oh, they did?
And anticipated that
Yeah, we have one.
this might happen.
Adam, turn your name for me.
A or a D, that's all you do.
Just like it sounds.
A or a D.
Well, when it comes down to it, Yablonsky and Wassenaar.
Yeah, that's true. It's like a third.
Yeah, I thought that would help me, but I guess.
My maiden name is worse, so. sister-in-law actually made fun of us when we got married. She called us the Hanawasanikanushes.
Adam Blonsky had 17.
All right. Here. All right, thank you very much. Adam has been elected as one of the executive committee members. We'll accept nominations for the second executive committee member. Suzanne?
I'd like to nominate Diane.
Okay. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all right. Is there, Bill?
I'd like to nominate Kevin.
Okay. Second? Kevin? Second. Tim, okay. Any other
I'd like to nominate Russell Labus.
Okay.
That would be a conflict because Jim's already representing one of the towns.
All right, any other nominees? We have Diane and Kevin. So fill out your little ballots there and. What?
You need a little.
Oh, you need it.
No, here we got it.
Five.
These ballots.
Oh, no, Steve's good.
Neither member reached 16 votes, it was 12 to 13.
Oh, great. Suzanne?
Well, can we speak in favor of our nominee? Would that maybe help as we go through
Let's
another
do that.
ballot?
I'll-
I would just like to support Diane in this position. She has been very involved in Regional activities for a very long time, even before she sat on the committee itself. I mean, she's been very actively involved, very knowledgeable, very connected within the community. Also brings a different perspective, I think, to the deliberations, and is able to represent the, general environmental group, plus the public in general that she is representing. So I just wanted to speak in favor of her commitment and her knowledge and her involvement for such a long time in water issues. And she also, of course, sits on the BBAS. We've worked together in the leadership of that group, and she's been an exceptional team player and really working through a lot of difficult issues. She's also chaired a couple of the work groups as well through this process, and has come out with a great consensus recommendation. So she's able to work really well with the group. So I just wanted to advocate for her in this role. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Bill?
My turn?
Yes, sir.
From the standpoint of balance on the executive committee, I think it's well to have Kevin there to represent the lower end of the basin, this area of Region L. He also serves as a county commissioner at the end of the watershed, which gives him a perspective that's unique for the executive team. And so therefore, I again support Kevin for that position.
Very good. Any other comments? Go ahead and cast your ballots and see what happens.
I never.
We have a tie at 13. Previously, there was one abstention. Now, it's tied at 13.
Shall we flip a coin?
One for 6 months, one for the next. One shall arm wrestle.
Well, we could clear the coin. No, we have to have a majority vote to conduct any business according to the bylaws. what we could do is leave that position vacant until the next meeting when we have more planning group members present.
That's a good plan.
We have three.
Sir?
We have three vacant, so
Yeah,
that's
no.
probably a good suggestion.
Okay. Is there any objections to leaving this second executive committee position vacant until the next meeting? I don't hear any. So with that, we have our officers are Suzanne Scott as chair, vice chair is Tim Andrus, secretary Gary Middleton, and the first executive committee member position is Adam Yablonsky.
Con,
Sir.
I mean, just when her term doesn't end until August anyhow, so we kind of cover that.
Should I just, I don't know how that works.
I don't know how we'll decide if she's resigning in August.
Well, you know, you serve until you're replaced.
Okay, so then I would still be.
Yeah. Congratulations. Okay, guys, Suzanne, get up here.
Sure, we have to shift right now. I mean, it's your agenda. You should finish it, right?
He's ready to get out.
We need your sign.
All right. Okay.
This is the fun table over here. It's fun to have you down here.
Okay. Well, thank y'all very much. I have very big shoes to fill, so please give me a little time to adjust. Con has done an amazing job leading this group. I know it was stated earlier, we will make sure that we do appropriate recognition of Con and his service, his years of service to this Regional group at our next meeting in May. We will agendize an appropriate opportunity to recognize you and maybe roast you, I'm not sure. We'll do something nice for you. But again, let's give him a round of applause for all.
Thoroughly embarrassed.
Okay, so I guess next on the agenda, we have Nathan Pence giving an update on the Edwards Aquifer Habitat Conservation Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I won't take much of you guys' time this morning, just a couple of minutes, but I'm asked to give an update on the HCP every now and then. I know a lot of folks have a lot of interest. And we've had some movement over the last 6 months, or some progress, successes over the last 6 months. So I thought it'd be a good time just to pop back in and give a quick update. And easily said, the status of the HCP right now is good. We're actually better than good right now. We're moving towards a very positive end of things. I think I've talked to this group before. There's kind of two major components to the HCP. We've got habitat restoration, and then we've got the spring flow protection. And those things put together really make up the positive actions that we have to do through the HCP. So the habitat restoration in San Marcos and Comal, to date, we have achieved what we were supposed to achieve at this point, so we can check mark that box. We do have work to continue to do every year, so we have more work we have to do every year. But as long as we keep up with what we have to do year to year, we're in compliance with our habitat restoration. And if you ever get a chance to go up to San Marcos and New Braunfels, Comal, San Marcos, see the work that these guys are doing in the systems, it looks completely different than it looked a couple of years ago. We have 4 different programs that make up spring flow protection. Critical period management, so the stage drought reductions that EAA puts in place, stage 1 through 5 is in place, it's been adopted or it's in the Enabling Act. So we can check mark that box. The ASR program, we have not fulfilled that program completely yet. There's many ways to gauge that program and the numbers, but I think the easiest way that everybody thinks about is we're supposed to have 50,000 acre feet permitted or leased or under forbearance agreements by EAA. We're around 20,000 acre feet right now. So we do still have a little ways to go on ASR. But one thing I want to mention, in the first 2 months of 2016, this year, we have already surpassed everything we did in 2015. We have a lot of momentum going in this program right now. There's several reasons why, but it's kind of come together. We are making great progress this year. Rick Ilgner's heading that up at EAA, and we expect that program to grow even more this year than what it already has. So there's a success story there for that one, even though we haven't quite fulfilled it. Regional Water Conservation Program. Last time I talked to this group, that was one of the areas that I identified that we needed to focus on and we needed to work because we hadn't had a lot of movement. Staff at the Edwards Aquifer Authority and staff at the San Antonio Water System got together, put their heads together for mutual benefit for the two entities and also for the region by benefiting the HCP. And EAA and SAWS executed a contract together that's going to equal somewhere around 19,000 acre feet of conserved water for leak repairs on the SAWS distribution system, which is going to roughly equal 10,000 acre feet that goes into the groundwater trust. That was our goal. We can check mark that program and we fulfilled that obligation at this point. VSPO, last time I talked to this group, we were already there, but I'll go ahead and point it out again. 40,000 acre feet is the target for the voluntary irrigation suspension program, conservation program out west for agriculture, and we have around 41,000 acre feet enrolled into that program at this point. We can check mark that box. So out of those 4 spring flow protection measures I was just talking about, ASR is where we're lacking. And I really hate to use that word lacking because we are making great progress right now and moving forward. Our monitoring programs are in place. We were required to build 2 models for the HCP, one of which was to update the ModFlow hydrological model that's used for planning for the Edwards Aquifer. That has been done. That model is back in-house at EAA, and the staff is calibrating and fine-tuning that model right now. Probably still a year out from being able to use it for the planning exercises. But we're there. We've got the model in-house, it's built, and it will be able to be used here in the near future. Ecological model, we were supposed to build an Eco Model 2. That model is wrapping up. It should be packaged and delivered to EAA within the next 6 to 8 months. Great progress there. We can check mark the box on both of our models. Refugia, for those of you who know what that is or don't, let me just mention, that's essentially a big aquarium facility where the endangered species are moved there. It's that last-ditch insurance policy just in case the springs wish to go dry. We do not have a fully operating refugia in place at this moment. However, we have in-house at EAA 3 proposals that we have received to an RFP that was put out for refugia, and probably within the next month to 2, we will have a signed contract with an entity for a full-fledged refugia. We're not quite there. I can't quite tell you we've check marked that box yet, but we're so close. It's right around the corner. And then what is this all about? It's about compliance with our incidental take permit that we got from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And there's amounts of take that you may cause of the covered species and still be within the confines of our permit. We are so far under those limits and those numbers at this point that I feel very comfortable in check marking that box and saying we're there. Just kind of wrap it up. We know where we need to focus in 2016. We need to focus on our ASR program. We need to focus on our refugia. As I mentioned, we've got great movement going in those 2 programs right now. We have a plan to be able to check mark those boxes by the end of this year as well. So I'll end where I started. Overall, the status of the HCP right now is very, very good. We have a lot of momentum and we're making a lot of progress. Be glad to answer any questions if anybody has any. Yes, ma'am.
Nathan, just real quick, on your habitat restoration piece, what's the number of acres that have been restored? I know it's annual, but up to now?
We don't really measure it in acres because most of that restoration is taking place in the river proper. So it's more of starting at the top of the system and starting to work our way down. But one thing I'll say about that, most of the habitat at the top of the 2 systems for Comal and San Marcos, that's the most prime habitat, the most important habitat because it's proximity to the spring orifices. So we've started up at the top of the habitats in each of the systems, and we've pretty much done the stuff at the top of the systems, and we're starting to move our way down the river now, which if we wish to enter a real drought record again, that habitat at the top of the systems is the most important. So we really feel really good about what we've done so far to help the species if we wish to enter a drought record.
Bill?
Can you refresh the group's memory about the federal fish hatchery and why it doesn't serve as a refugium?
Okay, I sure can. Right now, the Federal Fish Hatchery actually does still have some species at their facility, but that's of their own fruition. That's not due to a contract that they have with the HCP. So they are still doing some refugium. There are some questions about legal contracting and whether or not the EAA could contract with them. We've gotten some Attorney General's opinions, plus several of the contract managers and lawyers from the U.S. Fish and from EAA have met. At this point, Mr. West, the easy thing I think I can say without violating any procurement policies is that they are eligible for consideration as we're going through the round of reviews of proposals we have right now.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
How do we reach the goal on the ASR project?
Okay, we have had a lot of conversation about ASR and how we get to the goals that we have. We've done a lot of work over the last year that I think has contributed to the momentum that we have right now. So a few things that I'll mention real quick. We had an internal work group of the HCP to work on ASR and help identify opportunities. We're using some of the advice that we got from that work group, and it's helping us. The perfect storm kind of set up also at the middle and end of 2015. The HCP as a group voted to increase our leasing prices that we were paying for ASR water, so that started to pick up some momentum. We broke the drought towards the end of 2015, or however you want to say that. Water started falling from the sky. During times of drought, folks don't want to let go of that water, so when it started raining, it kind of helped increase our leasing. Another thing I'll mention, internal at EAA, we were using an external contractor who was having pretty good luck, but we decided to bring that leasing program in-house and put one of our staff members on it full-time to focus on the relationships with the permittees and a few of those things. Rick Ilgner at EAA has done a great job in building trust with those permit holders, explaining the programs to them, and once you explain it to them very well, some of the logical choice for some permit holders to get into our programs, and they're doing exactly that. So we kind of set those things in motion at the end of 2015, and it has built continuously as we moved into 2016.
What percent of the 20 is leasing, comes from leasing?
From leasing, that 20,000 acre feet that's represented up there right now is leases. It is leases, yes, sir.
If I can just add one other, it's all about economics really when you think about it. And the other thing that's part of that perfect storm is commodity prices in the ag economy that is forcing irrigators to make decisions about what they're going to do. And I think more water has become available as a result of that. So it's economics, drought, lack of drought, all that comes together.
Nathan, just one other question, and maybe others have done this, but I'm wondering, do y'all provide tours of the area where you've restored? And is that something that we could maybe allow folks here to take advantage of one of your tours?
Absolutely. So we do a couple of different things. First off, we come speak to any community group or any set of elected officials or any sort of working committee that is together. We give presentations about the HCP. We tailor them to the needs of that group. So if anyone needs a presentation at your community group or in front of your staff or anything, let us know. We'd be glad to do that. We typically do tours by request, but we most definitely have taken individuals who have an interest, and we've also taken large groups that have an interest. So if Regional as a group wanted to go see it sometime, we'd be glad to facilitate a tour. If a group of environmentalists wanted to go see it, or municipalities, the answer is yes. We'll work with anyone to accommodate what they need.
Would the group be interested if maybe Cole sends out a doodle poll or something to see if you'd be interested in a tour for those? Would y'all like that? Okay, then we'll work on trying to maybe arrange a tour of whoever in this group would like to go see it. I know I would like to see it. I think it'd be interesting.
I think it's very eye-opening to see all the work that has taken place out there. There's really been some great progress.
And y'all have had some great media coverage on some of the work that's been done, the science that's been done out there. I think that's great, so congratulations.
I think Nicole, we'll get together and we'll work something out.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next on the agenda is the status of the Guadalupe San Antonio BBAS work. And I just wanted, since I'll just give you a quick update on where we are with the scientific studies. If you recall, there was some money that was put forth in the biennial budget And we submitted, there was a work group that was led by Diane as far as as part of the BBASC. And they worked with Greg Eckert. I don't know if he's here, but he's done an amazing job helping us with some of the evaluations of the studies that were submitted. So the decision was made to move forward with, based on the funding available, 3 different studies that are currently under contract negotiations right now with the Water Development Board. And those 3 studies, not necessarily in order of priority, are a study of the key estuarine faunal species with UT Marine Science Institute. There's an evaluation of the variability of sediment and nutrient loading into the San Antonio Bay with the USGS, and then a in-stream validation study that the River Authority, our San Antonio River Authority, has been working on with many others to try to validate some of the in-stream flow work and the standards that have been set. So those 3 studies are currently under negotiation, and we hope, according to the Water Development Board, they feel like they'll have some contracts executed within the next 4 to 6 weeks to begin that work. Any questions? All right, thank you very much. Next, I guess, Temple, do you have an update from the Texas Water Development Board presentation?
I do. My main update is that Ron Ellis is now the board staff working with Region L, but so he's going to speak to you, and I'll happily fill in gaps or answer questions.
Good. Well, hi, everybody. I'm Ron. I know a lot of you from my previous life in the water rights world at TCEQ, but I'm really looking forward to working with you in this capacity. My general board update, I don't anticipate it's going to be as long as this one, but or involve slides, but I wanted to give you my contact information, and some of the stuff I'm going to talk about kind of lends itself to you all seeing it visually. So I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone. So first of all, we have a new board member at the board. Peter Lake was appointed on December 15th. He was Director of Research and Head of Automated Trading at Gambit Trading, and he also served as Director of Business Development for the Lake Lionel Oil Company. He's got a BA in Public Policy with a specialization in economics from the University of Chicago and an MBA from Stanford's Graduate School of Business. He's originally from Tyler, so I'm not sure when Director Lake will be making the rounds, but he may come to one of your meetings in the future to meet all of you all. As you may know, February 5th was the deadline for the submission of abridged SWIFT applications. There were 40 applications received at the board. 3 of those applications were from Region L. Shirt Seguin Local Government Corporation submitted an application for their expanded Carrizo strategy. Central Texas Regional Water Supply Corporation and SAWS submitted an application for the Vista Ridge project, and SAWS submitted an application for Vista Ridge Integration Project. The next step is that the board prioritizes the abridged applications and gives out invitations to submit full applications. Those full applications will be due 30 days from the board meeting in which the board approves, selects them, and prioritizes them. And once the technical review process is complete, the project's presented to the board. So the slide that you've got there is the upcoming timeline. Right now, the board is considering the prioritization of abridged applications. That'll be completed by the end of the spring. Then the invitations will be extended to submit full applications. Then in the summer, the board will receive completed applications and approve applications. Then by the winter, the bond closing by the board and the loan closing for the applicants will occur.
When is the next SWIFT cycle?
The SWIFT cycles are annual. So this cycle, which just began, will extend until this winter. Basically, that's when those loans will close for the selected applicants. Then it'll start over again in December of this year, and with the deadline probably early February again for bridged applications.
Sir, when it's summer, are we talking about, the middle of summer, the day it gets hot?
Summer in Texas.
Yeah.
No, I think we're talking June, July, August timeframe there. That's really the best information that I have right now. So another thing that we're working really hard on right now is the state water plan. We anticipate that on March 3rd, at the board meeting on March 3rd, staff will ask the board to approve release of the draft state water plan. And after the plan is approved for release, it'll be available on the board website. And also the draft interactive state water plan will be available online. The time frame for that is to have the final 2017 state water plan adopted this summer. Again, June, July, August kind of time frame. Another item that I've got is kind of a question for y'all. At the beginning of a cycle, the board staff can do some sort of training for planning group members. We've got like a Planning 101 presentation we can do. There's a training program, I think, for new planning group members. So I need to hear from you all what y'all would like to hear from us. So, if you want to, you can let me know now or see me, after the meeting or send me an email. I'll put my contact information back up there and we can talk about those things and what meeting you'd like for them to occur at.
Well, Ron, if I'm correct, and Con, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we have several of our positions coming up in 2016, and I think we're going to later in the agenda begin the process of the nomination process for later in the year. So it may be good after we get those new, some may be returning and we may have new, that would be the next sort of class of members. Do you think that would be appropriate to do it at that time?
Sure do.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that would be sometime, August timeframe?
Okay. Well, I'll
So-
pencil that in for now and
Okay.
we can discuss it again in May.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another thing that we're working on right now is a slate of proposed rule changes. We're preparing some changes to chapters 357 and 358 of the board rules. There's some items as a result of recent legislation. There are some items that we're trying to clarify in our rules, and there's some things that came from stakeholder concerns. So what we're doing right now is preparing a letter to send out to planning stakeholders and request comments. The letter will have a list of items that we are considering doing rule changes on, and what we will be looking for is comments on, yeah, we think that's a great idea, no, we don't think that needs to be touched, or don't forget about changing this also. It's something that we think needs to be done. So what we'll be looking for is comments from our stakeholders to kind of determine where to go with the actual rule proposal. We'll also be addressing a requirement in the planning statute 16051D requires us to update planning guidance principles, which are in chapter 358 through 58.3. We have to do that on every 5 years with the planning cycle. And so we're going to, any changes that come from that, we're required by statute to coordinate with Texas Department of Agriculture and TCEQ on that. And anything that comes from that process will be rolled into this rulemaking process also.
So Ron, so you're going to be, through the initial letter that goes out, are you going to be soliciting ideas, or you're going to provide ideas?
Both.
Because-
The plan right now is to give a list of ideas of,
Okay.
it's kind of a high-level list.
Okay.
These are sections of the rule, and it's because of a statutory change, or or this is the general thing we're thinking about changing. But we're also, the letter that goes with it is going to ask for other ideas if there are any.
Because our planning group, as part of our regional plan, sort of identified a long list of things that we're going to be sort of talking about over the course of our planning this year. And some of the, we haven't solved all these issues, but they were raised for public comment, or they were raised from the group. We included some of it in our policy chapter. And I don't know if when you came up with your list, did you sort of go through the policy chapters of the various plans that were submitted to see if there's some continuity of issues that were raised, or?
Well, I have to admit that the list precedes my time
Oh,
with the
okay.
board.
I will say, yeah, we did, Suzanne, we aggregated all the policy chapters from each plan and kind of thematically aggregated that. So yes, they have been taken into consideration. What's distilled in this letter that we don't have to all the stakeholders isn't necessarily going to highlight every single thing submitted. It doesn't mean that it's not in the background under consideration.
Okay.
But envision this process to be very much like the last rule revision we did, which had preliminary stakeholder input that precedes any kind of draft we'd be taking to our board. So do indeed submit Appendix M or whatever y'all feel is appropriate. Now's the time to just get all input on any aspect of our process.
Okay, thank you.
And so in the board's rulemaking process, the process is we'll get these comments, we'll prepare a rule proposal that'll go before the board, and that proposal will be published, and there'll be opportunity for public comment, and there'll be a formal response to comments during that part of the process, but we don't anticipate any response to comments in the initial stakeholder portion.
Con?
Ron, are you looking for a response from the planning group as a whole, or from individuals?
Right now, we anticipate, well, either or both is the answer. Right now, we anticipate sending the letter out to individual planning group members as stakeholders. So that's the plan right now. So either or both.
When would the final action be taken by the development board to adopt the new rules?
Well, we're hoping to take this to the board for proposal either late spring or early summer. And under government code, we would have to adopt within 6 months. So it would be before the end of the year for final action.
Okay. Well, later in our agenda, we're sort of going to talk about, the next steps of all the things, how we wanted to tackle some of these issues. I guess I'm a little concerned that we may not have consensus or able to kind of go through each of these issues in time to give you, we know the issues because they've been raised. I don't know what our response or recommendation would be relative to what rule we would recommend changing.
Right.
So I guess what we may need to do is when we get your letter, that may help us to prioritize what order we want to take some of these in, given the things that have been raised by you or by the Water Development Board, as well as obviously a compilation of what's been gathered from all the other planning groups.
Right.
We may have some continuity among other planning groups and then things that are maybe more specific to us. So we'll have to do that and look at it.
Yeah, we can look at that as we go along.
Okay.
When you respond, if you feel like there's issues that there's not time to address, then let us know that, and we can determine how we can address it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would you be the primary to-go guy, or is there going to be a layer of people that the region would have to work with?
I think that there will be somebody at maybe Temple actually coordinating the receiving responses and things like that. You're always free to contact me, and if I'm not the right guy, I can put you in touch with the right person. All right, a few other things. So we get this question from a lot of regions, so we kind of want to just discuss it a little bit, put it out there. But we've heard from several regions regarding funds for region-specific studies. It's something that the board has done in the past, and we're looking at it again. But right now, we don't know what it might look like, and we'll follow up in the future. Once we do know, what that might look like. A few reminders regarding contracts, fourth cycle contracts. March 1st is the final reimbursable expense date. March 30th is final payment request. Fourth cycle contracts expire on April 29th. There was an email that went out January 13th, I think Temple sent it out, regarding these things on fourth cycle, and I think you guys are in good shape. I think that, I don't think that there's anything really outstanding with y'all, but if there is, let me know and we'll sort it out. As far as for fifth cycle contracts, the planning group has to do their pre-planning public meeting and procure consultants before spending any fifth cycle funds. So I know y'all are looking at May for pre-planning public meeting and should have a consultant here by the end of the day, we hope. Let's see. A lot of information on this slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about projections for the fifth cycle. So one change that we're making for the fifth cycle is to develop the next population and municipal water demand projections based on water provider service areas instead of political boundaries. We're calling it utility-based planning. These are the projections that will be the basis for the 2021 regional plans, for the fifth cycle plans, and the 2022 state water plan. So we think this will allow for a more realistic portrayal of water needs and sponsors in the water plans. Annual water use data is already reported to the board by water utilities as a whole, and that's what we use to calculate GPCD for the planning area. So we think that lining these things up will make a lot more sense. Kevin Kluge, you may know, he's the manager of the water use projections and planning section at the board, is going to come to a meeting where we had discussed doing this in May for you all to present this change and discuss it in detail and answer your questions about it. But I just really wanted to give you a heads up that this is on the horizon for the fifth cycle. Also regarding projections, the methodologies that we use to develop power generation, irrigation, and manufacturing projections are currently being peer reviewed. We expect to have the results of those peer reviews this summer. And if there are any changes to the methodologies, then we'll come back and discuss that with you as well. The mining and livestock projections, right now we're looking at two different options. One, either doing a direct rollover of the previous projections or readjusting the projections using trends based on recent historical use. So that's something, if you've got an opinion on, we probably would like to hear. And another note on population projections, since this is an off-census planning cycle, what we plan to do is start with the final population numbers that we have in DB17 now, and then that's what you would get for comments and adjustments during the planning cycle. So what we've got here is the timeline for the fifth cycle with regard to projection distribution to the planning groups, and this is a potential timeline. In July this year, we plan to provide y'all with a list of the municipal water user groups under the new utility-based process. So that's the first thing you'll see is a look at, what would the new WUGs be in the process. Then in the fall and winter, release draft population projections, release draft municipal projections, and livestock and mining projections. The far right column up there, if you see that, that's a number of months until the IPP is due. So we're looking at getting you those population projections and those municipal projections 36 to 39 months before your IPP has to be complete. Then in June of 2017, irrigation projections, manufacturing projections, and steam electric power projections. Then the deadline for the projections adjustment requests would be in January of 2018. That's our target at this point. And that would give you a little over 2 years before the IPP is due, and then 2 years before the IPP, staff would take those projections with your adjustments to the board for approval. And then March of 2020 is when the IPPs would be due. That's all I've got for you today. Is there any questions, or is there anything else that you'd like to hear about?
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Chair's report. Con, did you have anything you would like to say? All right. I sure don't have anything other than the fact that we're going to recognize Con at our May meeting. So let's move on then to number 8, discussion and appropriate action regarding sufficient form and level of detail for Regional meeting minutes. This is, I was just going to say, this has been an issue I know that was raised at our previous meetings, and I believe that members of the planning group wanted to have a conversation about it. So I'm going to let Con, this is a legacy issue from him, so I will let you lead the discussion about, your thoughts.
Suzanne, could I suggest that we move this agenda item to right after the selection of the consultants? I think as a courtesy to them, they don't need to sit through all of this discussion.
Sure. All right. Do I have consensus that would be okay to move that item, an administrative item later? Correct. Thank you. All right then, so next is discussion and appropriate action regarding the conflicts of interest as they relate to consultants for the Regional Planning Group. Cole, are you going to discuss this item?
Yeah, so in the last meeting, outlined in the minutes, the planning group, there was an item on that agenda before authorizing the administrator to solicit proposals. There was an item on there regarding conflicts of interest. The purpose of this agenda item is to sort of lay to rest any lingering discussion points that might need to be addressed prior to selecting the consultants today, which is the next agenda item today. At the last meeting, the planning group agreed to require the disclosure of contractual relationships with member entities that are active at the time of contracting with the administrator, and any contractual relationships that might be entered thereafter for the duration of the contract period. Additionally, whenever the planning group authorized the administrator to issue the RFP, they did so. There was a discussion about the relationships with the prime contractor and subcontractor, and which should be the prime and sub. And it was agreed that the RFP should allow for that decision to be solicited, or for that decision to be made by the teams who are proposing. So that's where we are at this point. Like I said, the purpose of this agenda item is to lay to rest any of the lingering issues that planning group members might want to discuss before selecting consultants today.
So was the list of the firms, the 2 firms that were going to be interviewing today, they submitted the list of other work that they've done?
Those lists were provided with the proposals, and I believe I reached out to both teams yesterday. They'll be talking to those points today.
As part of their presentations?
As part of their presentations.
Okay.
The rest I leave to the planning group to discuss.
Does anyone else have any comments? Diane?
I actually, after that last meeting we had, realized that everybody needed to see the white paper that prompted me to bring up the conflict of interest situation. So that was emailed out to you. That was written by Norman Johns of the National Wildlife Federation, who formerly worked for one of the major engineering firms before he worked for NWF. And I emailed that to Cole, and he sent it out to all of y'all. And in case you did not read it or have time at the moment and it passed by your in your email flood, I wanted to just take 2 minutes to summarize what that paper had to say. That paper, if that's okay with y'all.
Yes.
That paper talked about conflicts of interest, looking at consultants in the entire state water planning process, and how that has become mostly engineering firms that do both the construction and design as well as work for the planning, the regional planning groups. Norman Johns, after going through the details of all that in several pages, said that he thought it could impede planning from achieving its full intent, and he also thought that Regional, like all the planning groups, needs objective and unbiased information. He felt that two main points he summarized in his paper said that the conflict of interest that full-service engineering firms have the potential of is large financial gains as projects move from concept to the lucrative design and construction phase, which is where the money really is, the income for their firm. And he also, number two, said that the engineer's judgment about cost, reliability, socioeconomic and environmental impacts could be fundamentally conflicted if the project is reflected favorably in the planning process for this SB1 planning process. So he gave us a list of about 4 options about how you could address this conflict of interest. Number 1 was divulging clearly where there is conflict of interest, because knowing there is conflict of interest is a very important part. I mean, if you don't know it, you don't know to cast a skeptical eye on information when it comes to you. And then the second one was making our process one that does not use engineering firms that also do design and construction, but use perhaps study-only firms, firms that only do planning or study. Study was the second option. Third option was using firms that are only considered planning type firms that do not do the design and construction of pipelines and water projects. And then the final one, I think I've duplicated one of them here. The final one was having restrictions on the firms that are chosen for regional planning groups that would restrict them from later getting contracts to design and construct projects that are on the water plan. And he felt that addressing this issue is very important to get a truly balanced, fiscally sound, and representative water plan. So I'm just summarizing that white paper for those of you who did not grasp all of the implications.
Any other comments regarding that issue?
I would add that much too late, only this morning, did I learn that a firm has formed to address these kinds of issues by someone who used to work at the Water Development Board, who is based in Central Texas and does water planning only. I think it's called Aqua Strategies. Up to this point, I have not been able to find a firm that could be considered planning only. But we might take that into consideration if, for instance, if I understand correctly, what we're doing today is doing a consultant's contract for a segment of the 5 years. I don't quite understand whether we're doing the whole 5 years or if there is a beginning part and then a later part. But I just wanted y'all to be aware of that, and I'm trying to find out more about the firm myself.
Any other comments? Robert?
I think there's something to be said that there's conflict of interest and there's potential for conflicts of interest. When I looked at these reports, I did not see any conflict of interest. I saw potentials. Every single prime and sub-consultant, except for one, under both proposals, have worked for SAWS, currently working for SAWS or have done work for SAWS. Each one of the two teams has a former SAWS employee on there. So all of these are potential, and they disclosed them. They showed them to us. They told us about them. I've talked to both firms about that. I firmly believe that last planning cycle, there was a not only potential, but a very explicit conflict of interest that exposed themselves here in what they were doing. That was between GBRA and SAWS. And, you know, I talked to Bill about it. I talked to HDR about it. And that was very, something that we needed to address, SAWS needed to address, and we addressed it. And so, although I do believe that it is our duty that we just know that there's potential there. That's all there is potential. It doesn't mean that just because they do work for SAWS or do work for GBRA, that they automatically should be disqualified. I think if we do planning-only type of firms, I would imagine Black & Veatch and Allen Plummer would withdraw their proposals because they frankly make more money working projects for SAWS and projects for GBRA and projects for some of the other cities here. So I just say we go into this with our eyes wide open and mandate that these two firms, whichever one we select, they've already done part of it about disclosing. The other part is when something else does happen, that they just disclose it to Cole, for example, and he dispenses that information.
And I think that's the practice that we put into the RFP, correct? That they have to, as you mentioned, disclose any other contracts that may come forward.
Suzanne,
Hold on, I had John has a hand at first, and then I'll go to Donna, and then you, sir.
Yeah, I'll build on what Robert said, but the other thing is, you need to be careful getting planning only. If they don't have any construction or real-world experience, and I saw this on highway stuff, they'll be designing things that don't work. So we need to be careful about planning only. They need to have real-world experience in their planning activities.
Yes, sir. Okay, Donna?
Yeah, I just wondered, are we going to come back to this after the presentations, do you think? Because there were a few other points I wanted to make about it. Just that, it would, like, for instance, it was said at the last meeting that the current consultant had 12 entities around the table that they had worked with. And so that information is important to know. I didn't know who those entities were. They said, well, we could ask them. But I think in a way we need to be more, find a way that information is more readily available, not only to us, but also to the public. I think that's going to be one thing that we need to consider. Not that it rules anybody out, but I do think that we need to have that awareness.
And I do think the two firms are prepared to talk about that today and did submit as part of their proposals any other work that they've been doing with any member here of the planning group. Yes, sir.
Suzanne, can you clarify a little bit for me? The contracts that or the RFPs we're going to review today are going to be, we'll decide one, a contract will be between that successful company and the Regional L group, is that correct?
The contract, I believe, is through the River Authority. Go ahead, Steve, if you want to explain, or Cole.
The contract is going to be through the administrator. So back in last year, I think May last year, the group redesignated Sarah at San Antonio River Authority as the administrator for the regional planning group. So that contract, we have a contract currently in place with Texas Water Development Board. And that contract will mirror the contract that we are entering into with the successful consultant.
Because I was just trying to get a feel of what Diane said earlier is a realistic something that is realistic in the comments that she referred to about the conflict of interest. And I just wanted to see where that conflict of interest ties, and if it meant everybody that's around this round table, or is it just the trustee that you just described?
Well, I'll let Diane talk to that, but I think she was speaking about the planning group members, so we're sort of the agency, I guess, for the agent for the contract, but we are, while it's governed by the Water Development Board rules and Sarah's policies, the planning group makes the decisions for the contract.
And so if they were to interact, anyone around this round table, to interact with any of these consultants outside the scope of Region L, that's not a conflict of interest?
That depends how the planning group decides to define a conflict of interest, but it hasn't been in the past. It's something that this past several meetings was brought up in the public comment period, and it's something that the planning group, certain planning group members have decided to address moving forward.
I think there's an issue that's been raised different between a legal conflict of interest and a perceived conflict of interest. And I think some of the things that we're talking here are more a perceived conflict of interest. In other words, are because of other work that the consultants may be doing, are they being influenced in some way that would make them then, choose one project over another because they may be potential to have the opportunity to work on that project, or because they had some knowledge because of their planning relationship, does that set them up more favorably to get work from other firms? That's the potential that I think Robert is talking about. It's not a legal conflict of interest as much as it is this issue of the roles and responsibilities of engineers and entities around the table and projects that will come out of this. I mean, it is part of that. So I think that's where we are. There's not a legal conflict of interest. We're making sure of that. It's these other issues. Yes, sir.
And I just want to add, with the discussion that's already occurred, we put in the solicitation that the proposers need to at least tell the planning group who they are working with. And then the planning group can use that information in their decision-making process. And then as the contract moves forward, then any additional work, particularly if it's with a planning group entity that they haven't contracted with before, then they need to notify us, and we'll pass that information on to the planning group so that you have that information. Now, as far as selecting of projects and all of that, this planning group does all of that, and the consultants react to it. So they don't do any choosing of projects. This planning group chooses the project, and you go through a discussion. Now, you give direction to your consultant as to what kind of information you want to see so you can make a decision. But this planning group has pretty much held that very tightly as to their duty to choose projects, and have not delegated that piece to consultants at any point in time in the class planning.
Okay, any other comments on this right now?
One
Diane?
last thing I would like to say is that during the BBAS process, I don't want to talk about a specific entity or project or anything, but it came to my realization that at times we were using information that came from sources other than we thought the information came from. And that clearly had a potential for conflict of interest, or clearly would have made me look more carefully at the information. And so that's what I'm trying to bring forward to the group to be able to consider. I think I agree with the rest of y'all that we're not going to be able to eliminate engineering firms from a process that in the state of Texas is a widespread way of doing regional planning by using an engineering firm that also does design and construction and that's involved in everybody's water projects. But we have to be aware while we're receiving the information from the engineering firms that there may be times when we need to really ask questions and figure out where it came from. And so for that reason, it's really important, like was done this time, to list the firms that have contracts with various water projects, and for us to hear about those in the future if a new contract comes along. And I don't know exactly how to accomplish it, but if we get information from our consultants for Regional that comes from a specific piece of work that they've also done for an individual on the Regional board, I would think we'd want to know that. Not that we're gonna say that information is no good, but we would wanna know that. And so that's why we're having this discussion, and I'm hoping that our consultants, whoever they may be, will be very open with us about this kind of information. It will help us do a better water plan. And that's what I'm trying to accomplish here.
It's a good point, Diane.
Suzanne?
Yes.
At the risk of belaboring the issue, just an observation. We're talking about perceived conflicts, and I think what we're transferring a lack of trust among the group to the consultants. And I don't think that's necessarily fair to do. If we don't have trust among the group, one with another, that's another issue that we need to deal with further down in the process. And I saw that in the process we just finished up. At the end of the day, it's about, are we going to trust each other to do the work the right way? Are we going to stay within the planning process, not venture off? And if we do that, I think the conflict issue becomes minimalized. But it's when it's trust. It's trust. It's trust among us as a planning group.
I think that's a good point. Don?
I agree, we all need to have trust. I also think that it helps to enhance the trust by having the disclosure.
No, I don't disagree with that.
I think the public expects us to have disclosure.
Okay, I think we've had a good, healthy conversation about this. I appreciate y'all having this dialogue, and Diane, thank you for reminding us about the issue. I think as we move forward with our deliberations today, it may come up, and we may want to take some of these issues into consideration as we learn more from these consultants. But to respect the time today, I think we need to go ahead and get started on the interview process. So we can move to the next item, which is discussion and appropriate action regarding the selection of consultants for the development of the Regional 2021 Regional Water Plan. I'm going to read from Cole's last email regarding the process. Is that okay, Cole, to just kind of outline, just to be clear? I know all of you got this, but each team is going to be able to present for 20 minutes as opposed to 15 minutes that was, I think, talked about earlier. The agreed upon order is that Alan Plummer Associates will present for 20 minutes, followed by our questioning, and we can take as long as we want to do with that. During the time of their presentation, the other firm, Black & Veatch, will not be in the room, so as to have the ability to have some dialogue with them without the other consultant in the room. And then after we're finished, then the process will repeat with Black & Veatch coming in, giving their presentation, followed by our questions with Alan Plummer Group outside of the room. And then we'll have our discussion, and then we'll vote by a ballot as to which firm we want, okay? Is that process all right with everybody? Okay, so Cole's gonna, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I have a different conflict on this issue. I'm engaged to be married to a member of one of these subs on the Black & Veatch team, so I'm going to recuse myself in the interest of transparency and fairness on deciding whether or not to hire these firms.
Okay.
That's the best news we've heard all day.
So you're gonna leave and
Well, you can listen.
I'll sit in the back and listen if,
Okay.
I enjoy the presentation, but I won't.
So don't let it
You can
confuse
just-
you about getting married or not.
exactly. All right, so you'll stay and listen, but
Yeah, I'll
not
just
vote.
listen.
Okay, thank you.
Suzanne, I'm gonna do the same thing. I need to abstain too.
Okay, so Steve also needs to abstain, so we're making.
Yeah.
Now that would be new. Got a wife. Okay, anybody else at this point? All right, so let's begin the process. We're going to begin with Alan Plummer. That firm would like to get set up, and then Cole will be, as soon as you tell me you're ready, then Cole will be our timekeeper. Each of you had the opportunity to look at the presentations online, so hope that y'all were able to do that. If anyone wants to take a quick break while they get set up, you can do that now. We'll start at 5 after. How's that?
I appreciate the nomination.
I was trying to deny it. Well, I get up and then
I have that in my pocket.
Okay, if we can regroup everybody so we can get started. Okay, let's get seated, everybody, please. We've got a lot to do. I want to get through this entire agenda item. I want to do both presentations, our deliberation and action, before we do any breaking for lunch. So it's going to be no food, a late lunch, but we need to, in fairness to the consultants, we need to do it both without a break, okay? So, Alan Plummer, are you ready?
We're ready.
Cole, are you ready to start the timekeeping? Okay, your 20 minutes begins.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Rex Hunt. I'm with Allen Plummer Associates, and I'm delighted to be here. This team is delighted to be here to talk to you today about regional water planning. We have a lot of ground to cover, so I want to get started immediately. Regional, one of the 16 regions in the state, some 12 million acres of land, 21 counties. You've got a widely varied ecosystems across the state, 9 different basins covered in this region, surface water basins, 5 major aquifers plus other aquifers. This is arguably the most varied and the most unique region in the state when it comes to issues and associated with it. So it's very important that you have a consultant that understands that and can lend their support to that process. Last spring, you all issued or produced a draft 2016 water plan, which went out for public comments. In response to that, you received some 400 agency comments and public comments, individual cities, water authorities, all kinds of people, and a whole range of issues brought up in these comments. That's a lot. I think probably the most of any region out there to have to deal with. That's good because it lends its support to the vibrance of the community here. But out of that process, you all developed last September what you've called the 2021 Plan Enhancement Process. And that is something we're going to want to focus on today. We want to talk about that some more with respect to this next planning process. But today I really want to do several things. First of all, I want to introduce the Alan Plummer team to you. I want to talk about your plan enhancement process and the plan itself. And we want to talk about collaborative decision support. This is a process we work through in many regions, and we think it can be brought to bear on the issues that are here in this region as well. And finally, why the Alan Plummer team? When we get through with this process today, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you for something to have the opportunity to serve this region. And I hope that what we say today in this presentation and our responses to whatever questions you have will give you what you need to be able to say yes to that question. So the Alan Plummer team, first of all, we have Blanton and Associates represented here. Today we have Velma Danielson and Gary Galworth from Blanton Associates. We also have LBG Guyton. They are Texas-based and the oldest groundwater firm in the state of Texas. We have here John Ashworth and Jennifer Herrera who representing them. We have Friesen Nichols on the team. And today we have Bill Thaman, Tom Gooch, Spandana Tamuri, and also Trooper Smith here representing Friesen Nichols. And finally, Alan Plummer Associates with me here as the project manager for this team, as well as Robert Adams and Alan Plummer here today. Some of these folks here will be speaking later, and we'll get to them momentarily. This is not all of the team that we have here. We have others on the team. These are some of the leads in the different areas that we think are important. Behind them, we have others still. If you had a chance to look at the SOP, we have the resumes of some 20 professionals that are part of this team. We think this region deserves that level of effort in this process. Talked a moment ago about transparency with who we work with. Again, the statement of qualifications has a list of our clients. We've got them listed here as well. These are go far beyond just the regional water planning group. These are entities within the region that we work with in one capacity or the other. We have small entities, large entities, down basin, up basin. We cover the region very well, and we're very, very proud of these relationships that we have with these entities. It really helps us to understand the needs of the region, to be so familiar with what's going on with the people that are involved. So I think that is a definite plus to have a team that understands that issue. We can certainly talk about this more later as we need to. But let's take a step back and look at the Alan Plummer team's regional water planning experience across the state. Again, if you've had a chance to look at the statement of qualifications that we submitted, you've seen this matrix in there. But basically, this shows all of the various tasks that are involved in regional water planning, and across the top, all of the regions in the state in which we work in one capacity or another. sometimes as primes, sometimes as subs, together on all regions, and throughout the process of the 4 cycles that have gone through, we work together. This is a team that works together a lot. Another way to look at this, though, if I can, is to look at a map of the state of Texas. If you look at this, you see Region L there. You see the green parts of the state. These are the regions in which we work. Some of them, and not in others, but in between the Reeves Nichols and Allen Plummer Associates and Guyton, we work in all of these regions in one capacity or another. There have been 64 state or regional plans produced in the first 4 cycles of this process between the 16 regions. We've been responsible for producing over 40 of those. Let's talk about Region L and their 2021 planning process. The plan enhancement process that you produced in September had 14 different items on it. We've tried to summarize those in a logical way here. Some of them were very environmental related. They included plans effects on freshwater inflows, a blueprint for long-term water sustainability. Those kind of environmental issues are certainly important to you all. But there's also kind of plan structural issues. How do you deal with the use of innovative strategies? What do you do about maintaining management supplies and overplanning? Those kinds of issues are sort of associated with the structure of the plan. Those are very important to you as well. We could talk about all of these and talk all day long if we needed to, but I really want to focus on 3 of them. One of them is a blueprint for the long-term water sustainability. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. We're going to talk a little bit about demand determinations because that is certainly part of this first RFQ is the projections and demands there. And then we want to talk a little bit about developing and categorizing water management strategies, another issue with you all. Sustainability to me is sort of the issue that rules them all. It wraps itself around all of your other issues in one form or fashion. How do you sustain, how do you develop and manage your groundwater resources in a sustainable way? How do you manage your surface water resources sustainably? And how do you integrate those 2 together? They're very much combined. Add to that the alternative issues, reuse, and certainly conservation, which is something that Allen Plummer has certainly embraced in the last few planning cycles. These are all issues that lend themselves to being addressed for sustainability. And this is certainly something we want to be a part of as you begin your discussions in this next cycle. In a moment, Bill Thaman and Tom Gooch are going to talk about some specific issues related to projections and water management strategies. And then Spondany is going to talk about this decision process that circles back on the sustainability thing. It helps us to wrap all of this and take some of these complex issues and supports them.
Rex earlier mentioned the development of demand and need. And in Chapter 8 of your current plan, it emphasizes the importance of local input on those 2 elements. We want to talk a little bit about what we've done in another region and how this will tie back into Region L. But in Region H, Houston region, we developed very detailed population projections for the Harris-Gallatin Subsidence District. And during that process, we worked collaboratively with the major stakeholders in the region as well as the Water Development Board with the idea that at the end of that process, we wanted those projections to be adopted by the Region H Regional Planning Group and Water Development Board. And so we assisted the planning group in that process, and they ultimately were adopted. You see there that's very detailed projections, and the benefit of that is that there's continuity, there's consistency between local planning, the numbers that local planners are using, and the regional plan. Where that ties into Region L, we also feel that there's opportunities here. We work with, and I list a couple of them there, SAWS, NBU, and City of Seguin. We work with those entities to develop detailed population and demand projections, and there could be the opportunity to bring that local input into the process and improve the data, the important data that goes into ultimately determining what the needs are in the region.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the strategy analysis and selection method and what the consultant's role in that is. There is a lot of complexity in looking at strategies and how you select them. And there are a lot of things a consultant can do to make that go better. One is to provide a clear outline of how that process will proceed and a timeline. And then to go through that with the Regional Water Planning Group and let y'all approve or modify it as need be, so everybody knows what the process is up front. Another important thing is to allow enough time for the process to work out, allow enough time for people to work together and come to a consensus. There are some strategies that by their nature are more controversial than others, and it's important that those strategies be brought up early so there's time to work through those complexities. Another thing that the consultant can do is serve as a facilitator for this consensus building process. To give some examples, we had a case where had a water supplier buying water from another water supplier, contract issues. What does the contract mean? What does the contract commit the seller to? What does it commit the buyer to? We met with them and talked about that and came up, well, here's a draft of how we understand y'all believe that contract works. And they both said, no, it needs to be tweaked here and there. And we went through a series of meetings to come up with an agreement. Yes, this is what the contract means. We could bring that as a consensus of the parties to the planning group, for the planning group to approve. Another example, we had a strategy with multiple water suppliers involved. And we had a series of meetings with those folks to talk through, how's this going to be done? Who's going to get how much water from it? What's the timing of this going to be? So everybody could reach agreement and bring something to the planning group that the planning group could consider and approve. Another issue that's come up in, especially in Region C, I've done a lot of work in Region C, that's the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. You can't do anything in Region C to develop a strategy that doesn't have downstream water rights implications. So we've looked at those very carefully and worked in that case mostly with another region, with Region H, to make sure that everybody understood what those issues were, that they were properly considered in the analysis. Ultimately, the planning group is going to decide what makes up the regional water plan. The consultant's job is to provide good information in a timely way and an organized approach to help y'all make the very best decision.
As Rex has mentioned earlier, one of the main goals for this regional water planning group is to identify and develop supplies that will meet the need of the region in the future. We are proposing a decision support system to help the regional water planning group work through that process. Those that have been involved in the regional planning process know that we have to deal with a lot of variables. Now, these variables are different for various regions and the importance could be different as well. But we have to work with variables such as population, demand, supplies, stakeholders, uncertainty, legal and permitting regulations. What makes the process of working through these variables a complex process is the constraints that sometimes impact them. There are constraints that the regional water planning group and the consultant team have to navigate through to enhance collaboration, communication, facilitate decision making, and help with the consensus building process. What we are proposing is an integrated planning approach that uses the decision support framework, which will help us work through these variables, help us manage the constraints, and ultimately deliver the 2021 Regional Health Plan to this region. Why the decision support framework, you may ask? There are various reasons, but I'm going to state a few here. The first important reason, the decision support frameworks allows for a transparency in the entire planning process, which will help us work with multiple entities and multiple alternatives in an organized and a strategic manner. Second, the decision support framework helps us work through complex and nested water management strategies and helps us categorize them into recommended, alternate, or those strategies that need additional work. It really helps us work with these water management strategies. The third important point is the decision support framework helps us incorporate uncertainty into the planning process. It helps us conduct several what-if type of scenario analysis to look at potential future. And it helps us with the management of supplies and the overall planning issues. Ultimately, the last point is the decision support system helps us manage consensus and helps us track the consensus. It will help us quantify the stakeholder input and weight the stakeholder input in an organized manner so that we can incorporate that into the decision-making process. This team has worked in several regions, and we have used this decision support system approach in various regions to have success. We've been very successful in this. One thing we've learned with our experience in other regions is regional planning does not have a one-size-fits-all approach. Each region has its unique issues, and the planning process should be unique to that region. We are hoping that with the decision support framework, we can develop a process that will cater to the needs of Region L, and we deliver a plan that serves the region really well.
I'm Alan Plummer, and we certainly appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today, and we really appreciate you considering our team to work with you on this project. We understand how important this project is to you, and I want to assure you that this project is also very, very important to us. It would certainly be an honor for us to work with the regional entities that have demonstrated such a strong commitment to be good stewards of the water resources. I'm proud of the fact that Alan Plummer Associates is in a position to commit Rex to you as your project manager. Rex is committed to providing high-quality service to his clients. He places a high value on communications, especially listening and then following through after listening to what your guidance is. Also, he has excellent technical capabilities, and he certainly demonstrated being a strong leader. Rex's first task was to identify the skill sets that are needed to address the issues and the challenges that you're faced with. Once doing that, he identified firms that had the experience and the capabilities and the resources available to serve on the team to help you meet those needs. I want to just assure you that I'm very comfortable and confident that Rex with his team members, and also emphasize that API is very committed to transparency. We will develop sound science and technology to provide to you, where we can work with you as you develop your policy and direction for an integrated and collaborative water supply plan that's going to be in the best interest of Region L as a whole. Well, I want to wrap this up now. You've heard most of what I'm going to say now, but I'm going to say it again one more time. Why select the Alan Plummer team? I hope you're asking that question right now. I want to bring these things up. First of all, we are an established and sustainable team. We've worked together throughout the state of Texas on various regions, many regions here, as you can see, and we know we can bring that information back to this region and help us as we help you in this process of this next round. We have vast knowledge of Region L and experience here. We want to be transparent, but I'm telling you, we're very proud of these relationships, and we think that this helps us and helps us to help you. One thing I haven't mentioned is that we have on our team a person who used to be a member of your regional water planning group, Velma Danielson, and I think that will help us also in our transparency here. Velma understands the pulse of this RWPG, and I think that helps us to be more transparent in that sense. Consensus building and decision support system, this is what sponsors talked about. We've used this throughout the state, formally and informally, and I think that it's a process here that can help you work through some of the sticky issues and the complex issues that you have. And lastly, experience and committed leadership. Alan just committed me to that, and that's it.
Okay, thank y'all very much. So now if we can see what kind of questions the planning group members have. You can do that in an orderly way, that would be great. So anybody would like to start, any questions? Yes, sir.
Thanks, Suzanne. Rex, can you kind of give us a little perspective? Where is this team going to be set up, and how many people will be based out of San Antonio? How is it going to be organized to serve Region L? Because I think it's important for all the members to be able to have a pulse as to how accessible will you be, and can you
Okay.
kind of expand on that?
My office is in Austin, Texas. I grew up in Austin, just up the road, and I will be basing this out of there. We have Bill Thaman, who is in the Freese-Nichols Austin office as well. Trooper Smith is located here in San Antonio. He's going to be an important part of this process. And of course, Velma is in San Antonio, and she is a critical part of this process as well. Jennifer, you're from New Braunfels, right? Where is your office, in Austin? Yeah, it's in Austin. So most of the team, at least this core team here, is really in Austin. But this is this is just up the road. We think that this is an easy process to manage from the city of Austin, or from that location. And one thing I was thinking about when y'all were talking earlier about questions and making sure that you know what's going on with your consultant. I have a cell phone, and I've just pretty much given people my landline. I keep my cell phone with me at all times, and y'all are welcome to call me anytime. I'm just with it. It's with me all the time, and it's kind of my second office. So I think that's how we're going to handle that.
Rex, I think it's also important to just point out that Freese-Nichols does have office facilities here in San Antonio, and they're certainly available for us to have any meetings that we need to hold with any of the regional planning group members. So we do have that access.
Thank you. Robert, you had a question?
Yeah, and if you don't mind.
Of course, absolutely.
Who are the individuals that will participate in the meetings that we will be having?
I will be at the meetings for sure, and we will bring in others as we need to. I suspect Velma will be at most of our meetings, Trooper will be at most of our meetings.
Not just here, but actually be the working part of it.
Working group.
Is that the?
Yes.
They're the ones.
Again, this is one reason we have a large team. Is I'm not sure what work groups y'all are going to ultimately have. Obviously, you will have groundwater related work groups. We will have LBG guide, particularly Jennifer, involved in that process. I will be at those that we need to be at. Surface water. Freese-Nichols has some experts in surface water. If we have WHAM questions, they will bring those folks in. So it kind of depends on what you want, but we have people that will cover all of these
What I'm
issues.
specifically asking about are the individuals that are going to be working very close with the administrator, San Antonio River Authority, and that are here assisting Cole in what he needs to have done. Who are those individuals?
This team right here, particularly Bill and myself and Trooper and Velma, are all the core of this team. And from there, it will depend on what, if it's a conservation question, it may be Eddie Wilcott. If it's a groundwater question, it will be Jennifer or John.
Okay, the other question is, you were here, I believe, in part of the discussion. Had they been excluded yet?
No, they were here during this conversation.
How are you going to prevent a perceived conflict becoming a real conflict?
Well, first of all, let me say that I really understand that concern. I see it in a lot of places. There's a lot of concern out there about potential conflicts of interest, but I appreciate what you said. We work for a lot of different entities. It is not in our best interest to make you all mad in this process. So this is something that we need to be fully transparent about whenever we're working with one of you. And that's one of the reasons if you're wondering about something, you think you're doing something, you're welcome to call me. If you don't want to call somebody else on it, we certainly want to be transparent and all throughout this process.
Yeah, and I think the point that Rex made is extremely important. We want to assure you that we want open communication with you. And Suzanne, you may have a process that you want if individual entities have a concern about some perceived conflict of interest. I don't know how you want to address that from your planning group standpoint, but we want to know about that. So we want to let you know that we're always open to hearing that, and the sooner we hear about it, the better. And then we'll make sure that you understand our rationale for making certain decisions to overcome any concerns about that. So.
I think one other thing that can be said about that is that Guyton and Allen Plummer Associates and Freese Nichols all lead this planning process in certain regions. And we're all capable of analyzing strategies and bringing information to the group. So if you have a situation where, say, Allen Plummer and Associates is working with someone, then they could just step away from that analysis and ask Freese and Nichols or Guyton to conduct it. Freese and Nichols is working with someone, then Allen Plummer or Guyton can conduct that analysis, so you aren't getting the same people working with you who are working with the project developers.
Okay, thank you. Robert, are you?
Yes,
you have a
thank you.
question? Okay, other questions from the team? Bill, yes, sir.
It's for Robert. No, Alan, you put together an impressive team here, but through the course of the planning process, if we run into a problem, an issue, are you going to be available to step in and help us resolve issues with your expertise?
Yeah, I will, Bill. And, you know, I'm certainly committed to you all, and it's shown on the organizational chart. Rex has me there as part of the quality control team, and then I'll also just be providing some direction as we go along. So.
We won't let him retire.
I think my wife has been talking to him.
Kevin, did you have a question?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, could you please call the map up on your PowerPoint on all the regions there that y'all are affiliated with? Where all the green. There, okay. Region L, okay, so if I understand you correctly, that the whole state of Texas, you're affiliated with some sort of regions, all of the state, is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. Where my concerning question is for priority, how would Region L prioritize, how would y'all prioritize Region L compared to, since you're so large and have affiliation with all the other regions? It comes with experience, I understand, but there again, when it comes to a point, will we get a fair shake?
You will get a fair shake. We have, you know, we've been doing this a long time, and the teams that we have for these different regions include different people. You know, Simone Kiel is in charge of Region F. She's not involved in this region. I'm in charge of Region I in this region, but I have other people with me working on that region as well. So it's actually quite a large number of people. It's Freese and Nichols and Guyton and Allen Plummer Associates that do this work. We have enough people to produce these plans throughout the state. It's not just a few of us. It's not this 10 or 11 people here today or the 20 people we have on the team. It's a larger group than that. It kind of has its own thing. Now, let me give you an example. When Freese and Nichols took Region H over in the last cycle or last cycle, they basically acquired the team that was doing it before from the previous team. I mean, so they brought on more people as they needed to and increased the number of regions. And that's the way it works. We got the expertise to grow the teams as we need to.
Okay, and so I'm kind of ask the same question because I didn't feel that I got the answer. What Robert was talking about, we're used to seeing at least 2 staff members here at every meeting, and every staff meeting. We're used to looking over here, looking at the staff. What 2 will we be seeing over here, or will we be seeing 4 or 5?
We'll be seeing me every meeting. We'll see Bellman and Trooper at most of those meetings, if not all of those meetings. And because we know on the agenda generally what needs to be discussed in advance, if we need to bring other expertise to discuss specific issues, groundwater or water conservation or surface water, you know, WAM issues, we will bring the expertise in that we need.
And one other question, on that list, which one of those are current? Are those all current? They are affiliated with all?
The only regions that we're not currently serving, but we have in the past, K, we're not working in K right now, and we're not working in P. No, we're working in M. No, we're not working in M right now. We have worked in M in the past. So P and K are regions that we've worked in the past.
Thank you.
I'd like to make just one other comment that kind of addresses your question and Robert's there. I just want to emphasize that Rex will have single point responsibility backed up by Allen Plummer Associates for this project. So you won't have to be going to 5 different consultants. You go to Rex, and we're going to be responsible for this project. Just want to assure you of that.
Yes, sir. Well, hold on a second. Are there any other, since you've already had a bite at the apple, I want to see if there's anybody else that has a question before I go back to others that have already asked questions. Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Suzanne. I guess I'm trying to, my question is going to be surrounded about when you do the analytical and you do the research. We talked about population as an example. There will be there's other examples. I don't know them all, but what I want to ask is that where is the core analysis going to be conducted? Is it a centralized at Plummer's facility? Is there a specific think tank team? Because you have all these regions and you're doing kind of the same thing in similar ways, but is there a central area where all this data is calculated, or is it spread out? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, it will be spread amongst the team according to what the guidance office will do. We'll do groundwater evaluations. Freeze and Nichols will be focused on surface water and water supplies. We'll be doing a lot of the population work, although I'm going to be relying on Fields for help on that as well. And so it's not one central location, but we collaborate a lot over the phone, conference calls, and that sort of thing.
And the reason I'm asking that is because timing is important in some cases, and an acceleration of getting that data. And if everything is going into one think tank, then we're number 5 on the list, but we need it yesterday. So I'm just trying to get a handle on how that works in operation.
We had to work through that in the last cycle, working closely with the Water Development Board and their, what they call the DB17, and I guess it would be the DB22 next, their database. And that actually helps us a lot. They've done an awesome job of developing a database that brings all this information in and creates reports that makes it easy for us to work with and for you all to understand. And and that's of course out of Austin, but that's actually going to help this process in this next round as the DB22 builds on what they've done at DB17 and goes from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Con.
Were you all proposing the use of a decision-making matrix, or was that the other guys?
Well,
They call it decision support system.
Decision process that, and I'm going to ask Sponda to talk a little bit more about that. It can include a matrix, but Sponda can elucidate on that a little bit.
Is that your question? Is that we're proposing? Okay.
Thanks.
Yes, we have used this in other regions, and we also use this a lot on long-range water supply plans for entities. What it really is, the way I see this is good engineering or good planning, but what we're trying to do is build a process around it. Regional planning, as you know, is a long process. It takes us 5 years to get from point start to point end. And there are several times we go back and come back, and we're looking at a lot of data. So what we've learned from our experience of doing regional planning for several rounds and talking about lessons learned is that it's really helpful to go into this with a process around it, anticipate what's going to happen 4 years from now, 3 years from now, and have a process around it. And one of the first things we're proposing to do is have a workshop where all the decision makers will sit down, clarify the roles, responsibilities, who does the data management, what do you expect the consultants' roles to be, and how do we go about decision-making, how do we make decisions, how do we clarify terms like risk, reliability, uncertainty, establish everything ahead of time so that when it actually needs to happen, we're not surprised by it. The other important thing about the regional planning process is it takes a long time, but the deadlines are set in stone. And those that work on this understand that. So it's very important for us not to be surprised with that deadline and be prepared for it. So what we've had success with in other regions is if you have a matrix, if you have a process, it really helps you be prepared for meeting that deadline. And we can clarify that more, aspects of that matrix more if you want me to, but that's really what we're proposing to do here.
Any other questions? Did that satisfy your question?
I think so.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, thank y'all very much. Okay, they will vacate and then we'll get the other team up. We don't have much I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, like professional services, you sort of go to the first meeting, that's, we have to stop negotiating with that, and you try to, it's a deal into. Okay, I'll explain. Okay, are we regrouping? Y'all let me know when you're ready, okay? Are you ready? Okay. You ready, Cole? Okay, your 20 minutes begins. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Joe Ia. I have spent most of my career, professional career, in South Central Texas dealing with water issues. So I appreciate the challenges and the issues that y'all have to deal with at the regional planning level. And I also appreciate the commitment that y'all make to this endeavor. It's not it's fairly a long ordeal, and for y'all to do that and have a family time and business time to work that in, that's admirable. And I think you need to have a partner that has that kind of commitment. And as an officer of the firm, I'm here to commit the necessary staff to support Phil and Brian to be successful in exceeding and meeting your needs. Now, not only is that staff-wise, but it is as well as professional-wise and ethically. That was an interesting dialogue y'all had before we broke out for the interviews. Something very close to us, as myself, as well as to Black and Beach, of being professional and ethical. That defines us, and I assure you I'm not going to jeopardize my reputation in this market for a project. So I'll get off my soapbox there. But Phil, can you take off with the presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Guys, we're excited about this project. We have a really great team, and we are ready to move forward, work together with you to facilitate this process to successful completion. And it's a critically important process. We are finding projects and finding strategies to meet the future water needs in an affordable way for the growth and the future generations of our region. Very important process. And we talked about the process, and we've heard a few concerns, and we've structured the team to address those. We've heard some issues about involvement of stakeholders and the public in response to those stakeholders. Some concerns about impact to the environment. Some concerns with the groundwater allocation, maybe over allocation, some of that management. We've addressed this, and we have our partners here to help us work through this. Jimenez and Associates, a firm that's been here for 30 years, worked with a variety of public and private clients, worked to facilitate some very contentious issues to resolution. We have SWCA, a national firm that specializes in cultural and environmental evaluations and permitting. They've been working here in the area for 15 years. Daniel B. Stevens, 30-year firm, works again in the area, works with the groundwater firms, familiar with the issues, do some of the own water resource planning. Black and Veatch, been around for 100 years, been working here in this area for more than 60 years on water resource initiatives. That's the firm. This is your team. These are the folks that we have here that you'll be seeing at the meetings that will be leading the initiative to walk through these issues. Brian, here with me, will co-manage this project. Nobody knows this process better than Brian. He has been working with it virtually all of his career. He's seen it evolve. He's worked with all of you. You know him. He's an expert in that process. For myself, I've been in the water business for more than 30 years. Worked in Arizona, California, most of my career now in Texas. Worked from the planning stage, execution design, spent time in field and construction, and operations of the field. If you think you learn a lot constructing a facility, you'll learn a whole lot more trying to get out there and run that water resource and make it work for your customers than you do probably anything else. And that's my strength, and I'm looking forward to that collaborative effort with Brian to work forward and make this a fantastic project. Sonia is here. She's got a world of experience in all the media tools, issues here in the area. I really appreciate her enthusiasm and her passion for this issue. Christine, SWCA, worked on major water infrastructure projects. She understands the impact of those. I love working with her. She's very knowledgeable, very professional. Andy brings experience with groundwater modeling, but it's not just the science of the modeling and understanding the aquifer, but the organizations, the rules, the personalities that are involved with that process. Guys, we're here. We live and work in the area. We work on projects. We're familiar with that. This is personal. This is our water. It's our water too. We're writing checks out for the water bills. Again, we understand Region L. We also lead efforts, Region M, Region O. We've been a participant in probably half of the plans in the state. So again, we get that, but we also get the infrastructure side and the implementation side of regional systems as well. We have a great team here. You're really going to enjoy working with us and working together. We've got a great spirit here in this team. Our commitment to you as we do this is to be completely conspicuous in the way that we execute this information we have, the way things are evaluated, so that everybody knows from the beginning to the end. We're not going to be successful if we get to the end and we didn't make sure at the beginning that everybody was on board all along the way with all the decisions and all the evaluations to get to those final projects and those strategies for the region. Brian will talk a little bit more about some of these.
So, as Phil mentioned, we started this team specifically for this region. We are focused for you. We're focused on solutions to help you address some of the issues that came up in the last planning cycle and previous cycles before that as well. So, quickly, I just want to kind of identify some of the challenges that I remember from the last couple planning cycles. One of them is how do you better establish demands? We'll talk about that here in a moment, but the Water Development Board is already moving towards that direction, and I think we're uniquely qualified to help you with that. What are the modeling assumptions we can all agree on? And that's not just the hydrologic modeling, but it's also the planning model that we develop as a group. How do we strike a better balance? That balance can be many things. It takes a lot of different faces in this planning group, whether you're talking about upstream and downstream interests, development of new water supply versus environmental concerns, groundwater versus surface water. These are all things we need to strike a balance in the planning process about. What can we do to make planning better? That's something we should always keep in the forefront of our mind. Stakeholder process. How can we get more WUGs engaged? How can we get better feedback? How can we get more information out to the public? And then finally, how can we address any environmental concerns that might come up? So first of all, population water demand projections. The Water Development Board talked about this briefly. They're moving to a utility-based planning. That's going to help a lot. As I worked with some of you in the past, you understand this issue, others you might not. But one thing that's going to be key here is that when those new projections come out, I think there's going to have to be a critical eye put upon them to look and understand where overlap was before and where that overlap no longer exists to make sure that the population water demand projections we're getting or that we may be revising are step in step with the utilities in the area. A great example is Jean Schnurger, Springs Hill Water Supply Corporation. She covers about half of Seguin. Well, on previous plans, all of Seguin, the city of Seguin has been under the city of Seguin. And we've had to work with her over and over again trying to make sure that her customer base, which is half of the city of Seguin, is included in her demands. That's one of the key things we need to talk about. And then just that will help with the buy-in from the stakeholders. Hydraulic modeling assumptions, hydraulic and planning points. I think it's key that we have a work group to kind of establish that up. In previous planning cycles, the MO was that the consultant would develop the list of hydraulic assumptions, bring that to the group, present them, there'd be discussion, we'd usher that up to Water Board for approval and be done. I think a work group early in the process of key stakeholders to render a recognition to the planning group what those hydraulic assumption is. So we can be consistent through the entire planning process. We can basically set the rules early and live by them. Other things that work group might want to tackle though is the issue of managing supply. That's something that comes up over and over again for the first 4 cycles of planning. And then also we start hearing about climate variability and climate change. That's something that's work group to discuss as well, and how we may or may not want to incorporate it into the planning process, or perhaps it's already being covered. We just need to make sure that we're aware of that and how it's being portrayed in the plan. So the first 3 planning cycles for the 2011 plan, every water management strategy had a simple 1-page write-up. That write-up not only consisted of information about the number of acres affected, the water supply, firm supply from that project, and unit cost, but it also had key information about environmental concerns, implementation issues, endangered and threatened species were listed there as well. Somehow in the 4th cycle, that sheet went away, that 1-page summary, and I think, the plan was that we were going to culminate all information in one place, and it just didn't happen. With Black Beach team this time, we're committed to doing that. And we want to do something similar to a heat map like this, where you have every project summarized in one place with key metrics listed there, and you can kind of see the effects of each project, where its strengths are and where its weaknesses are. And certainly a work group early in the process can help establish what these metrics are. I just put up an example here, obviously, Project A, Project B, et cetera. But we could certainly figure out which key metrics are important to the group and how best to display that in one convenient appendix, 11 by 17 fold out of every single project and all the key metrics. This planning group has always prided itself on being at the forefront of planning. One of the key areas that you guys have done a great job in is the cumulative effects section. Currently now chapter 6, it used to be chapter 7. But I think the question just begs, what can we do better? What can we do to improve the plan, not just revise the old plan? So one of the things consideration of big picture options. That could be regionalization, that could be finding facilities for economies of scale. Project phasing is something traditionally we've not done in the past. Projects generally just all come online all at once at some point in the planning cycle. But with folks like Phil and other Black Ridge individuals on the team, I think we can address those issues and look at phasing of projects and better put a plan together. We can step beyond the unit costing tool. I'm going to jump down a little bit. But step beyond the costing tool. The unit costing tool is great. Every planning region is using it. But it's the basis of the cost estimate. And where we can get more specific with our costs, we should. And so I think that'd be a great opportunity for this planning group to look into when and then allocating costs relative to benefit. And that's not just the benefit of the new water supply. That's the total benefit package of a project. It could be recreational or environmental impact as well. We should be looking at information like that. Next slide. Sonia Jimenez is here. She's going to speak on behalf of stakeholder outreach.
So at Jimenez and Associates, our philosophy is that people support what they help create. Everybody at this table has a constituency that they represent. And so in order to have an even better plan, our suggestion is to do a little more robust stakeholder outreach and public engagement. The items you see up here on the screen are just some ideas that we've had. The idea is to have information and education. It became very apparent at the last planning cycle that the public does not understand the scope and the reach of this group. They wanted you all to take projects off the table. They wanted you all to end things that you all don't have that power to do. So I think it's important that we get to the public and the stakeholders and let them know how this process works, and do that throughout the planning cycle, not at the 11th hour when we go to the IPP. We need to do that consistently and on a regular basis. One of the ways that we can reach folks is to do quarterly e-newsletters. A lot of people ask for minutes and things before they've been approved at the next quarterly meeting. The quarterly newsletter would just give them a snapshot of what happened, the highlights, and then direct them to the website to get more information. Surveys. Surveys can be used internally and externally. We can use them internally to help Brian and the technical folks get the information that they need in a more expeditious fashion, in a more easy, much more streamlined way, so that we can clearly get to those folks. He said he had about a 30% return that represented about 80% of the water users. Well, this is Texas, and people are coming to Texas thousands every day. So we need to be sure that that 20% is accounted for, and that we have those numbers correct more and more as we project into the future how that water is going to be planned. Outreach meetings, we had a thought about doing like a meeting in a box where we could send a pre-prescribed type of canned presentation that any of you could take to your groups that asked to get information about it. This past planning cycle, I was asked to go visit one of the groups that didn't have any information. I just did it on my own time, but I felt it was important to let people know what is Regional doing and how does that process work. It helped to clarify the scope of the group, and it helped to get a lot more people involved as we went into the public hearings. Rotate meeting location. Some of us that are old timers remember doing this. It was a little bit of a hassle, but it did increase participation throughout the region. Social media would never become, or has not been in the pipelines to be a formal avenue of getting comments or receiving comments, but it's a great way to raise awareness and to spread the message, particularly with those entities that are at the table that have social media platforms. We can work together to help build that following and get the information out. Live streaming and archiving meetings. The one meeting that we had in here that was standing room only, we immediately got calls to get a copy of that video. It would be nice if we could do live streaming, or even if it's audio, something that would be cost effective, but just as well. Perhaps the members that aren't here today could benefit from that as well, and they could participate remotely. So there's a lot of ways that we can get to folks, and we're excited about being able to carry this process on. And like I said, we would anticipate the support of the committee to do some of these. We wouldn't do anything without getting approval from you all. And most importantly, we would keep the public engaged throughout the process and not bringing them in at the last minute. And to talk about the environment will be Christine.
Because the environmental issues in our region are so important and complex, we would recommend putting together a work group specifically to address environmental issues for our region. Here are these bullets. I mean, obviously it's a huge world of issues, but some of the big picture ideas that we think are important. Resiliency, the concept of we need to be looking at long-term natural resource protection and long-term water resource protection. We need the resiliency of these systems to recover from drought, from environmental impacts, from wildfires. Sustainability, looking at endangered species protection, for example, not just with species we know that are endangered today, but species that are in the process of being listed on the endangered species list further out in the planning horizon. We need to be thinking ahead. On climate variability, I know that this is a matter of discussion. It's standard practice in the industry, in the world of environmental impacts assessment, to look at climate change now. So there's a lot of guidance that has been put together. There are ideas that are out there for people to look at, and we would see our role as bringing together the best available science to present to the group for you to use in your decision-making process. We're really interested in the ideas of advanced conservation, demand management, going on to the next step on conservation beyond fixtures and more in the area of how people think and feel about their water and their connection to the landscape, and how these affect how people use water. And this is something that's evolving, and you can really see in younger generations as being an important issue. Right. And Brian's mentioned about the cumulative effects, so I will pass it back to him.
So, we mentioned this early on, but we are open to a new level of estimating full disclosure here. Go quickly because I know we're running out of time here. But our team routinely works on projects in the basin. You guys had a discussion on this earlier. We're fully committed to it, not only disclosing projects that we're working on for individual planning group members, but any water project within the region. We want to bring that to your forefront. I envision under the consultant's working schedule, scope or agenda item every single time, that being one of the first things we discuss is what we are currently doing and what we may be doing in the future when we sign new contracts. And that's just not the Black Beach team members, but that's also all our team members. It's a transparent, open process that we want to have. It's something that we're committed to. It's something that, from a perception standpoint, HDR obviously didn't do it well in the past, and I'm opening my eyes that we need to do that better in the past. And this team is designed to have independent views here. We have an independent groundwater firm, we have an independent environmental firm, we have an independent public participation firm, and then you have Black Beach. So we have different perspectives to bring to the table that are going to keep the checks and balances going on here. So I know we're out of time. Thank you very much. Perfect. On behalf of everyone here, thank you for your time. We look forward to trying to achieve some of the challenges, or overcome some of the challenges this planning group has. As we close and we move to questions, you may ask why Black Beach? I can tell you we are committed to being focused on you and your issues and helping you resolve. Thank you.
Robert?
This question is for Sonia Jimenez. When you ended your presentation, you said something about so that we wouldn't have public input at the last moment.
I meant just at the last moment.
Well, what did you mean by just at the last moment?
Typically, if somebody wants
Do you believe
information
we
about
were, do you believe we were doing that?
I think we could be better at it.
Were we doing that?
Were we doing what?
Was Regional getting input at the very last minute?
Well, the public process fully opens up after the IPP is drafted, and so that's when folks come and actually give their comments. I think that this group has done an excellent job in terms of reserving space for comments before and after the meetings, for public comments to be received, and even during the agenda items. I think that we can do a better job of engaging people who are not currently engaged and I think are interested in water issues.
Thank you. And one more?
Okay, Robert, one more.
This one's for Brian.
Yes.
You were here when we were talking about perceived conflicts and real conflicts. What would y'all do to make sure perceived doesn't become real conflicts?
I think a big step of that is going to be, as I mentioned in the presentation, at a point in every meeting, whether it's a separate agenda item or under that consultant working schedule, that we openly not only just disclose we're working for entity XYZ, but the specifics, if necessary, about what we're doing and what our involvement in a certain project is. And that's not just the Black and Beach issue. I think that's an issue for all 4 consultants up here. We all have that. And if someone from another consultant can be at that meeting and present that information, that'd be great. If not, we will definitely have that information on hand to present to you. I think the other thing we can do is we have folks that are planners, we have folks that are designers. There's worlds sometimes intermingle, and we want to try to intermingle here to a certain degree, but certainly not to the point where we are pushing the agenda. This is your plan. This is the plan that you guys put together, that you decide how to go. All we want to do is give you the information so that you can better make your decisions and put this plan together that you can. And we will try to do that in the most open and transparent way possible.
Thank you, Doug.
I think one of the things that's impressed me about your participation has been your commitment, the way you've been familiar with the issues, the way you've been present at every meeting, every committee meeting, and we're always available to answer. And I think one of the things that the team brings to the region is continuity and your background in working with the region out. And the question is, are you going to continue to have that same level of commitment, and will you be at all meetings?
I can tell you, my commitment to this planning group goes beyond anything you guys can imagine. And there's a story I'll tell you guys at some point. But I think, yes, I plan to be involved at every single meeting, whether it's a planning group meeting, the staff work groups, any work group that's formed. But I think what's key and different here too is, especially with those work groups, if there's a specific issue that's being tackled, whether it's an environmental one, we'll have Christine or someone from SWCA present as well. If it's a groundwater work group or groundwater oriented, or become groundwater oriented, Andy Donnelly or someone from DB Stevens would be available as that meeting too. If it's a public issue or public comments issue, obviously we're going to engage Sonia. She's very much in tune with that. And if it's another issue altogether that maybe Brian Perkins, the planner at Black and Beach, doesn't understand, we have other Black and Beach people that are great. We have a great depth of knowledge. If you reviewed our proposal, there's a guy, Andrew Chaskin-Halley, who's big on conservation. He's a globally recognized expert on conservation. So if we do start into issues about conservation, we want to better address advanced conservation of the water management strategy, we can fly him in and talk specifically about that issue. And so Brian will be involved, and Phil too, to a certain extent, at most of the planning group meetings. I will be at every single one. Staff, and when we move to work group meetings as well, we can bring in the necessary resources to address that. So,
yes, sir.
Suzanne, thank you. Brian, like Doug said, you are a familiar face to all the regional region.
I hope so. If not,
And I guess really what I'd like to ask you to focus on, if you could, can you give your perspective on where Regional L could improve based on your affiliation with us and based on now coming to us saying, this is what we can do our team. But I'd like to hear from you is, where does Regional L need to improve based on your background with us?
yeah. Hawaii Manual told me planning is a lot about people, perspective, and politics. So I think one of the first things we can do is just better communication, and this group does a great job communicating, and Sonia mentioned that, and we've always offered the opportunity for the public to speak at designated times in the agenda, but then also pretty much on any agenda item they wish to. I think we could improve, though, by, and I think this is where Sonia was going, by trying to reach out and solicit more input. You know, if for those of you that were around in the first couple cycles, there was a lot of challenges. It was a new process. We were just trying to figure out. We looked at everything under the sun and put a plan together. But as we went along, and a lot of that focused on the big players, the big water users in the area. As we've gone along, and we did in the last cycle, we started to incorporate surveys. And I think we can do a better job of the surveys to solicit stakeholder input. And stakeholders both from the water users and those that are developing strategies, but also the public. You know, some of the other things we talked about here, I think, address that. And we were very conscious putting this presentation together to try to think, what did, and I'll be honest, what did Brian Perkins at HGR do wrong in the last cycle, or what could we have done better as a group, as a region? And we tried to address that through the issues here. So I think having all the information in place in a decision type matrix is a great way to do that. Again, that information was always available, especially in the first 3 cycles, with kind of one-page summary. But to culminate that all in one place and put it in a visual, graphical format too that's easy to read, I think that's something that this thing could do. I think that the water board is not necessarily requiring us to look at climate change and climate variability, but it's something that's on people's mind. And certainly around the country, it's starting to get incorporated more and more plans. And I'm not saying the next cycle or the cycle after that, but the water board at some point might start requiring that. This planning group could start now, I think, start thinking in those terms. So those are a few quick examples, I think, that where we could do better. You know, we had a lot of ideas. You saw a lot of them here today, but and we can go into more detail. But I think that's the touch on a few things.
Any other members have a question?
Yeah, I just, it's very intriguing to me, the public outreach approach. I've seen it used in other planning efforts with public entities. But is this unique offering to this regional planning group, or do you have other examples you can give me of public planning entities where you've led them through their public outreach effort?
We are currently working with the City of San Antonio on their SA Tomorrow, which is the 2040 plan they're doing. We are on 2 of the 3 plans. The SA Tomorrow is an umbrella that is SA Tomorrow, which is the comprehensive plan, which is the policy, which will be determining how we manage our policy going into so much growth. The City of San Antonio is facing double the growth within the next 25 years. So we're heading up the comprehensive plan. We're also heading up the multimodal transportation plan that's part of the SA Tomorrow. So a lot of these strategies we've used. We've also done things like virtual town halls. It's very hard to get the public engaged in long-term planning. I just don't think that when it comes to an issue like water or transportation that I think people want to be involved, and I think they want to know what's going on. I think one of the most important things for Regional is that educational component so that people truly understand what the scope of this body does here, so that they can know how to influence whatever's going on that they feel like they need to be involved in. So we've been doing it for 30 years. We've done it for TxDOT. We're doing some work for the River Authority through the county. The Habitat Conservation Plan that we did for Southern Edwards Plateau. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I've been doing this for my entire life.
It's all right. I think I'll interject too.
We've done a lot.
Some of the ideas we've come up to with, I think, can facilitate that in a great way. Most of your entities have some kind of social network already. We're not necessarily suggesting that Regional has a social network and we try to gather followers or everything, but if this group put together small tidbits that could be disseminated to planning group members that you could then retweet or post on your Facebook pages or whatnot to better get that information out. Suddenly we're reaching a much larger audience than if we try to start from the ground up and build our own social platform. And the canned presentation idea, I think is great. I know for a fact that some of you get asked, what's going on with regional planning? And you're trying to think back, okay, well, what did we talk about the last meeting? Would it be nice to have a you know, 4 or 5 slide presentation that you could pull out and you could edit if you need to and just hit on the key points that are of interest to the group you're talking to. I think that's something we could easily put together because, you know, in the past, we put presentations together all the time for the planning group. It's not that much effort for us to condense it down to just 4 or 5 slides and hit the highlights. So that you're better prepared to talk to your constituents and the folks that you deal with and the different groups. And that's just a broader outreach again. And that might inspire someone to come to a meeting and give public input, or inspire someone at a water utility to feed us information so we can make our plan better.
Hold on, let me get, did you have your hand up?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Russ had his hand up first, okay? And I'll go to Jean.
Brian and Sonia, we know your involvement with Regional in this past cycle, but has Black Beach as a whole and the other members of your team been involved with the other regions in the state in the past planning cycles or currently?
Yes, so I'll start on this and I'll defer to others to talk about specifics, but D.E. Stevens led Region O this last cycle, and Black and Beach, before I was there, led Region M in the past as well. And then as obviously been involved with Region L, SWCA is,
We have not.
but they've been involved in stakeholder groups like the RIP process.
Yeah,
So-
we've done other, more environmentally oriented planning, but, yeah, so we're very excited about the opportunity to work on this particular one.
Did you say M or N?
M as in
Okay.
modeling. Also, SWCA recently hired Stephen Schuster. He's been involved in Region O, Region J, Region M.
State water plans,
State
been
water
involved
plans.
since the inception.
Yeah, so, Joe or Phil, do you want to comment on Region M at all, or Andy on Region O?
Region O, Andy Stevens, Associates, Prime the last round. I've personally been involved, previous jobs with regions E, F, J, and assistant of
Yeah.
Region M, we've continued to work with them. Stakeholder participation there is a huge issue, and we've spent an enormous amount of time reaching out to those people, going out to talk to them, engaging them to get information, and work with them on the project to make sure they're adequately represented in the plan. Put a lot of thought in there to assist them to help them meet their future water goals. We've had follow-up work in the region to develop a regional water system that evaluated all of the available water resources in the valley, in the lower Rio Grande Valley. So groundwater, surface water, brackish, direct potable reuse, ocean desalinization, all of them is needed to meet their 50-year goals.
And ASR.
So, and then ASR as well to supplement some of that work.
And I think what's unique about the C2 is that the 4 firms we put together here routinely work together. Region M, D.B. Stevens was a sub-consultant to Black and Beach on that group. Obviously, Sonia and I have worked together for over 10 years now. SWCA and Black and Beach have worked together, I think, since 2006 or something. 2001. So we're not a new team necessarily cobbled together to win this job. We're a team that's worked together. We've worked well together in the past. And I'm excited about the opportunity to work with these folks.
Okay, Jean?
Sonia, I'd like to
Kevin, and
thank
then
you for your recognition that outreach efforts can be improved. I'm not saying that last one was back. And then my question is, do you have something in mind as far as a schedule that you would bring to the group of maybe these events? And as planning members, we have a responsibility to educate that public. Were you willing to work with us with tools to maybe help that effort and make all this process a better planning process?
Thank you, Gina. I neglected to say that during my presentation, but you all are ambassadors to the constituents that you represent. So if we were going to send something out, we would ask for you to send it to your groups as well. Maybe print it in your inserts or do something that gets folks to the website if they want to get that information. In terms of a schedule, when I said quarterly e-newsletters, those would line up with the quarterly meetings so that folks can know what's going on, so we can tell them, work groups are being formed to discuss this and this, so if they wanted to attend, they would get that information. In terms of the other things, I would work closely with the technical team to figure out the milestones that it's appropriate to utilize, like the surveys and those types of things. We may end up in the first e-newsletter doing some type of survey to ask people, what are the things you'd like to learn about Region L? What's the best way for you to receive information? Sometimes some of those baseline things. The outreach meetings, we would advertise those in the e-newsletter as well, so that we could open that up to whenever people want them, and we can begin to help coordinate that among the entire region to see if people want to do that. So that's just an example. I don't have a hard schedule necessarily, but my first suggestion would be to try to get a quarterly e-newsletter out there. Electronic newsletters are very efficient and they hit a lot of people in a short amount of time. And if we capitalized on the group here, like Brian said about social media, we would exponentially reach so many more people. I mean, it's 2016 and people are operating in an electronic world, so it's a way to get to people.
Okay, Kevin and then Diane.
Right, Russell asked the exact question I was gonna ask.
Okay, Diane?
Did I miss something? Were you all going to tell us what members of the group you were working with or had worked with?
So we disclose that information in our proposal, but we're certainly willing to talk about today too.
Okay, that would be good. because
So
I haven't seen it.
I'll start with Black and Beach, and if you want specific details, I may answer or others can, and then we'll kind of move down the line here. So Black and Beach currently is working for 3 entities in the region. With SAWS, it's the Water Resources Integration Program, looking at integrating different sources into their distribution system. With CPS Energy, we're doing a redundant pipeline, water supply pipeline. It's very much a design job to help them shore up their water supply to one of their power plants. And in some continuation work from my old previous job, I'm helping GBRA with the Mid-Basin permit as an expert witness, and it's something that will be finished hopefully before May, but for certain by May of this year, simply because I possessed all the technical information about how modeling runs were done, and there were interested parties on the other side that wanted to ask questions specific to how that project, how the WAM was run, how the frac was run, what assumptions went into that, and that was information I was intimately involved in. So I continued on as an expert witness, contracted through Baker Botts, their attorneys, to finish that up. So it's something I felt necessary to help support that application, but that arrangement ends in May of this year. So, Sonia, you want to talk about the projects you're currently working on?
I think at this time, the only contracts we have are with the River Authority for their county projects and their city trails, and those are creek restoration and trail development. I'm looking around the room, I know we've worked with a lot of folks, but I don't know that we've worked for them. Historically, we've done some work with SAWS, but that was back in the 90s doing conservation, and we did lead their ASR effort from the very inception for public involvement.
And these are water-related projects. Black Beach does telecom as well, so we are working in the area in terms of the telecom basis. So and I'm sure Sonia does transportation stuff as well.
Yeah, we have several contracts with TechStone, the city of San Antonio. Those are transportation and planning related. I'm looking around the room, and I'm not sure if I, could spot everybody's agency, but I think presently it's basically with the River Authority.
Yeah. Christine, SWCA?
Yeah, so SWCA is currently working on a habitat conservation plan for SAWS. It's somewhat water related because it's for the WRIP pipeline. We generally work for engineering firms as a sub-consultant, and in that capacity, we're working on the brackish water desal project, on some projects for Canyon Regional Water Agency for the Wells Ranch.
You had worked with the river in the past, but it's over.
You did.
You work with that, but that's.
We're working for Edwards Aquifer Authority currently on, oh yeah, endangered species salvage refugia. We also are working on some Edwards Aquifer HCP projects with the city of New Braunfels. And EAA, we're also doing water quality sampling project.
Andy, D.B. Stevens?
D.B. Stevens, we do a lot of work for groundwater conservation districts. We currently have a large countywide water quality sampling program going on in the Pecon Valley, Stewart County. We work with Greg Sengelman and Gonzalez on sort of an as-needed basis, helping them evaluate permits and remodel runs. We work with Goliad County Groundwater Conservation District. We've done some work, especially some of my colleagues in New Mexico have done some work on uranium mining that's going on down there. Those are three ongoing.
And you want to talk about Las Piñas just briefly?
Oh, yeah. one of my big clients is Lost Pines, which is adjacent to this region. There's a couple of the strategies that are in GMA 12 that involve heavily with GMA 12, working through their joint groundwater planning process. One of the projects is in Lost Pines, it's one of the alternate strategies, and then it was.
The Hays 4-Star project would have taken water out of Lost Pines District and brought it to Regional, that's why we brought it.
That's one that I'm actively involved in, and then GMA 12, of course, has the Vista Ridge project, but that's not within the Lost Pines District.
Any other questions? Con?
Now the decision-making matrix I was intrigued with earlier. Just as a side comment, years ago, I lobbied for, and the Regional Planning Group actually agreed to request funding from Water Development Board to develop a decision-making matrix to use in evaluating projects statewide. So I really like this idea. It can be extremely useful, or it can be disastrous. And my question is, will you use the planning group to develop that matrix?
I think I mentioned that in the presentation, but yes, I see that as a work group that can be formed here for interested parties, help to know what those metrics are and which, how we can break down the values within those metrics into key like issues. Maybe it's a red light, yellow light, green light. Maybe it's a 1 through 5 scale. But we certainly could, it could be bigger than that. It could be 1 through 10. It depends on the category of the metrics. So, but I totally envision that as a work group, a subset of this planning group to help develop that. And I would imagine we probably want to do that here in 2016 and 2017 before we really get into evaluating water management strategies. Because if we're trying to go retroactively go back and try to find all the information in the water management write-ups, it's going to be a little bit of hard work. But if we're thinking forward with that, we know what metrics we're looking for. We can, as we're developing strategy, we can pull that information and put it all in place. So that's totally it's a suggestion on our half, but driven by the planning group.
You obviously, Brian, you worked with HDR previously. I remember at the last meeting that Sam had said that there were like 12 different entities on this board that they had relationships with. I know you've moved to Black and Beach. Just wondering if it's a fair question to ask you to disclose those entities. I don't know if any of those relationships will come over to the other team, but I just wondering about that.
Off the top of my head, I will think about this. We've certainly done work for SOLS in the past. HDR done work for SOLS in the past, and they were doing the SSO program. Obviously, I don't hide the elephant under GBRA was a large client of HDR on the water resource planning side, not necessarily on the design side. They've done work for the city of Braunfels, some of the implementation of the HCP on that, some of the sort of stuff that Nathan talked about earlier. San Marcos, I want to say we did a rate study.
Studies for San Marcos.
And Buda, which is not necessarily on the planning group, but within the region, with the rate study for that. Invista, which is a chemical company down near Bloomington, Texas. I personally had worked on that in the past, looking at their reliability of their existing water right that they inherited when they bought the property from DuPont. Dow Chemical, HDR does a lot of work for Dow Chemical, mainly in the Brazos, but some in the Guadalupe San Antonio River Basin. CMC, which is a small company in Seguin, manufacturer. During the BVAS process, we had done a little analysis for them. They're within the region. CPS Energy, HDR had a contract with CPS Energy to do some water rights work with them. Personally, I'd worked on some due diligence work for them when they were looking at buying the Rio Nogales power plant in Seguin. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many that is, but that's what I got to.
It's 7.
It's about 7. San Antonio River Authority, how can I forget? Sorry, Suzanne. Besides regional planning, Madam Chair, besides regional planning, HDR worked with San Antonio River Authority on some of the river improvement projects, some water rights issues. I personally have worked on the permitting side of that for San Antonio River Authority. Just EAA, and with them, HDR historically worked for EAA. Developed a recharge model using HSPF, looking at the recharge basins of the Edwards Aquifer, and also a permitting issue with them regarding the recharge structures. UGRA, which is technically not in this planning region, but is upstream on the Guadalupe River that feeds into this region. HDR did work for them, and Kerrville, city of Kerrville there as well. Most recently, HDR did work for the city of Bernie, which does exist in this region as well. Am I up to 12 yet?
Yes, you're past 12.
Okay. And then the follow-up question was, those relationships come with me, I guess, to Black and Beach. I don't know if right now I'd say the personal relationships certainly, yes. And I think that's an advantage of Black Beach team is I know the folks involved in all those entities I just rattled off. Who the key people are to talk to when this group is soliciting information about the next plan. So the outreach to those entities becomes very easy, and for me to just call up or on a phone call or get an email from SAWS or GBRA or San Marcos, just trying to understand what their plans are for the future and how that might roll into the plan. I think that's an advantage. In terms of work, I've only been Black Beach now for 3 months. I think some of those entities we may still try to win some new work with. I have not been actively marketing a lot of the folks because of this proposal. The day that it came out, I pretty much shut down any marketing. I didn't want to taint the process at all, and interact with folks, even if it's on a secondary issue altogether. Inevitably, a regional plan's going to come up. It's just the nature, because that's the Ryan Group's space. They know Ryan from regional planning. So I have not been talking with a lot of those folks. My promise to you is that if we were to sign a contract with any of those entities or any other entity in the region, we are going to disclose that either at the next regional planning group meeting or through an email what's there and disseminate that information out. We can tell you the nature of that contract and what it entails. If it's a permitting type issue, surface water permitting, if it's a well-designed, if it's a water treatment plant rehab, we certainly can disclose that.
I'd like to offer further to Robert's
Donna,
question.
I'm sorry. What he answered to you, one of the very first things he answered was GBRA's water resource planning side. That was a perceived conflict that became a real conflict between GBRA and SAWS. So that's an idea that just because you disclose and just because you say what a potential conflict is, that's not enough. They have to act. And they didn't act.
Mr. Quinn, I am in a new firm and I'm committed to changing that.
It didn't change when you were at HDR.
Okay. Did somebody else have their hand up? I'm sorry. Did I see their hand?
He was trying to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to add, discussed it and answer your question. I mean, we're more than happy to give you, again, as Brian says, complete list of everything, whatever you have interest in. Again, we've all recognized we all work in the area, we work for clients. And to Robert's question, I'd offer, if we have that project that's ongoing and that is a concern, I'd offer we'll work with you to come to some methodology, whether it's setting aside a special group to do evaluations or some other methodology so that you can be ensured that there isn't any unreasonableness. That's what I'd offer as far as addressing that, if that does come up.
Phil just reminded me something too. We do have very capable teaming partners here at SWCA and D.E. Stevens that if there is a strategy that Black and Beach is working on water resources type analysis, when it comes to actually evaluating for the planning group, if you guys so choose, we can pull in one of our independent partners here to do that evaluation completely separate from Black and Beach. I can ask anyone at D.E. Stevens or a couple folks at SWCA to look at that evaluation of water management strategies from an unbiased perspective, do the analysis of firm supply, do the environmental write-up and review, and do the costing methodology for that, so that you do get a fair evaluation of every strategy. It's not just coming fed through Brian Perkins' Black Beach.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate your time.
Okay. All right, so I think that the next issue would be to take a vote, or do we want to have, do we need to have open discussion here? I mean, I think y'all got a good chance to have a vetting of the issues, and it's time to vote. Y'all ready?
I call for a vote.
Okay, so they're going to pass out a ballot here. Now, we've had some people that have had to abstain for their own reasons. We still need, as I understand it, 16 votes, regardless of that, for a firm to be selected. Am I stating that correctly, Steve? 16 still is necessary.
It's the same thing.
I think they have, if you want to check one or the other, that way you don't have to worry about writing it down.
The official ballot, oh my goodness, okay. Do we have to sign it? Diane on either side. No. That's why I asked Alan if he had a problem.
Okay, while they're tallying these votes, I think it would be the desire of some folks that have kind of whispered in my ear that if we could try to get through the rest of this agenda instead of breaking for lunch and then coming back for 30 minutes, would that be okay if we could try to work through some of these other issues? Okay, so I'd like to be able to do that as soon as we can move on to another item. A couple of these are going to have involve polls, so I really can't get to them very much. One thing I would like to talk about real quick is the items for future consideration. Item number 13, if we could just jump forward to that real quick. Maybe we could try to talk about a couple of these items while they're trying to tally the votes. As we have discussed here, and obviously was very much of a promise that Con made to the group as we finished the planning process this last time, we really want to start to get into the meat of some of these issues that came up of the group. And we have some things that are going to need to be discussed. I mean, as Cole identified at the top of this that you see in bold. I mean, we're going to have to, at the next meeting, have our pre-planning meeting, which is a required public meeting that you have to have before you kick off the next planning cycle. We do need to start to address some of these items on the bottom here that were listed in our plan, what was that, the policy section, I think that's it called. And then we're also going to have to fill some vacancies for some of the terms that you can see that were listed, terms of office of members of this group that expire in 2016. So there's several items that we already know are teeing up for this next meeting. Based on what we heard from Ron earlier, it seems like we need to do some prioritization of how we're going to tackle these items down here, in what order we would want to do that. And maybe this letter that we'll be receiving from the Water Development Board may help in setting this the prioritization. But my proposal would be, unless, and the rest of the people I'm going to put into this recommendation don't know it, but I'm wondering if y'all would allow for the executive committee to come back with a recommendation on what order we should start to attack these issues in, and maybe send that out to y'all in advance of the next meeting based on this letter. I assume we're going to get this letter, Ron, here in the next few weeks or so of
That's the hope, that's the
Okay.
plan.
So if we could get that and then, look at this list and maybe try to line them up, maybe then the executive committee could come up with a recommendation as to how we could attack this and then plan them out. Would that be all right on the? Yes.
I think that's fine, but I want to mention that Con gave us a draft list of prioritization back on, he gave it to the work group that was appointed to look at the plan enhancement. And he gave it to us on November the 14th. And that's the one I've been kind of thinking that we were going to use. And it had the conflict of interest at this meeting in February. It had item number 2, which is appropriateness and adequacy of demand and need and how they're determined.
Okay.
And then the conflict of interest of planning group members as another discussion item in May.
Okay.
And it went on to go throughout the year, but I won't read all of that to you.
Okay. Well, but what we could do is take what was put forward back in November and see if it's still relevant based on what we're gonna get from the Water Development Board. That may make us have to address some things sooner than maybe what Con was anticipating based on trying to get our ducks in a row for any comments that we would wanna offer. Would that be okay? If anything, we could use that as the basis starting point as an executive committee, and if anything modifies based on that. Is that fair? Okay. All right. So we've got that out of the way. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So we do not reach a majority for either team, require a second vote.
What was the breakdown?
There were 14 votes for Black and Beach and 10 for Allen Farm.
Okay. So, do we just want to take another vote, or does anyone need any additional information one way or the other? Okay, I'm sorry?
I was talking to him.
Okay. I thought you had a great idea, Gene. I wanted to see what it was. All right, let's do it again. Yes.
Say that.
You need 16.
I voted.
Yeah, this process, just as you're collecting votes, the way I understand it is that whatever firm gets the votes, I think one of the next items is to go into negotiations with that. We still have to negotiate with that firm. And if for some reason that negotiation is not successful, then you can drop to the second firm. That's typically the way these things work, as I understand it, and I'm assuming that process would be allowed here as well. But you'd have to sort of cease negotiations with the first firm and then drop to the second, as I understand it. While we're still talking about 13 while they're counting, those of you who are, please look at this list here of the terms that expire in 2016. We will be having to go through a process to replace or to fill these slots. Obviously, those that are already here would be open to reapply. That process, we have to go through a process of sending out the nominations and all that, right, Con? Is that how that works? And then there's an interview process and then a recommendation that comes back to the committee. So we would start that process at the next meeting in May. Is that the way that works?
And historically, when someone is willing to serve again, they have to reapply and the nominations are open to everybody.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Will they have to go be re-interviewed again through the executive committee if you're a standing member? I think Commissioner Conley brought that up last time. Will we have to be interviewed again?
I think we always have.
Yeah, I think so, particularly if there's other people within the category that have applied, I would suggest that we do that.
And we wouldn't ask for the authorization until the May meeting to get that process.
Right, that's, we start at the May meeting to begin the process.
Okay, with a vote of 16 to 8, Black and Beach won the consultant.
Okay, so do we need to take an action?
Yeah, so now the action
Do
is
those
going-
numbers add up? I mean, I want to make sure
Yes.
everyone's okay with it.
There's 24 members that voted, 2 abstentions, and then 4 that were absent.
So the math works? Everyone okay with the math?
Somebody got 100.
Okay,
So now the action is to authorize the administrator to contract, negotiate and execute contracts.
okay, well, do we first have to take action on number 10 on the selection, or is it just? Okay, we don't have to take another action, the vote's the action enough. Okay, I just want to make sure the minutes are going to be correct. Okay, so then number 11 is discussion and appropriate action authorizing the administrator to negotiate and execute contracts with consultants for the development of the Region L 2021 Regional Water Plan.
So moved.
And we have a motion by Gary, a second by John Knight. All those in favor? Kite, I'm sorry, Kite. I don't know what I was thinking, I'm hungry. Yes.
And I also put in that same motion as a friendly amendment that if those negotiations broke down, that the consultant, that the administration be able to negotiate with number 2 for some reason. In other words, it's giving them the authority to talk to the other
other
team
guys.
if something broke down. Without coming back for action from us 3 months from now.
Okay, I think that's, will you agree to that?
Okay with that, but they need to tell.
Okay, so what you're saying is then if negotiations with the Black and Beach for some reason are having to be suspended for whatever reason, either can't come to agreement on price or whatever reason, then we need to inform the planning group of the reasons why, and then move forward to the next one. Is that what is that the motion? Do we have a second? Everyone understand the process? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. All right. Now, I guess under this item, after this item, we had moved the issue of the discussion about the minutes after this item. So, I don't know if, Con, if you want to set it up based on this legacy item from you.
Why is that a legacy?
Well, because it came with you. I don't know what, I'm not quite sure. I remember the issue was discussed. There was some concerns about there's been some concerns about the minutes because they're becoming more of a transcription minutes. And sometimes that's where we're getting into some of the issues if it was captured correctly or not. So we wanted to kind of set some standard here about how we wanted minutes going forward. Is that correct?
Let me key off of that, if I may. The level of detail of our minutes, because of the information that some planning group members want to have in the minutes, has become very burdensome to the administrator. And the question before us is, where do we want to be on this scale that goes from simply a recording of what happened at a meeting on one end to a full transcription of the meeting on the other end. Where along that scale do we want to be in taking our minutes? And just to begin the discussion, I would like to propose that the minutes, with some exceptions, simply describe what happened at the meeting and not what was said at the meeting necessarily. In other words, what was the agenda item, what positions on the item were presented, what was the motion, and what was the vote. That would be the foundation for all of our minutes, with some exceptions. And then I would think that if someone wants his or her comments recorded in more detail than that, then if they're willing to provide those comments to us in writing and signed, we would attach those comments to the minutes as presented. And that, I'm just throwing that out as a beginning of the discussion of how we want our minutes to look.
And Con, that would be on the spot. Submit the question today of the meeting. Would that be better?
Well, let's talk a minute. I don't know.
All right. Robert?
I would think so. That would.
I agree with Con. I don't want to get into where you have to have like almost a transcription of the meeting. They are recorded. There was sometimes there's an issue as to what, for whatever reason, what we're trying to do, what we are doing, and we also use it for different purposes, for our own purposes sometimes. And if we do need that, we can always go to the tape and do it ourselves. Get the wording that we want ourselves, the mood of the meeting ourselves. But for the entire group, I think the way Con explained it is very, very adequate. In addition to the other item we're going to speak on as well, gives you an idea of what our budget is. We don't have the resources to be asking Cole and you, San Antonio River Authority, to be anything more than what they have been currently doing. So if that's a motion, I want to second it, Con, but that's the same feeling I have.
I would make it a motion.
Second.
Did you have something, somebody else have a hand over here? No?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
I'd like to ask the Water Development Board, has this topic been discussed at the Water Development Board as to the level of detail of the minutes of the regional planning groups?
No, there's nothing in our requirements that speaks to that. You guys as a group are expected to go in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, and that's as specific as we get, so.
Okay.
Can I just ask for clarification then on what you had stated? If someone wants their comments attached to the minutes, it's the comments that they actually stated at the time of the meeting,
Yep.
not that they can
Yep.
change that.
Yep.
So, I mean, there would have to be some transcription about what was said at the meeting at the time versus coming back later and having time to ponder it and then adding it to the minutes. Is that what you're
Yeah.
stating?
I would to clarify, if someone wants his or her comments or position as stated in the meeting, included in the minutes, then if they're willing to provide that statement or position in writing, signed to us as presented in the meeting, we would attach it.
Well, I have a question about that. If you get the minutes the Friday before, you'll have time to prepare a statement in time for Thursday's Regional meeting. But there won't be time to check and see if that person has written up something that is actually on the recording or not. So, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me instead of just attaching it to the minutes, it does need to be checked to see if it's accurate. But I'm fine with that kind of thing. I'm just curious about how accessible is the recording? I heard some discussion of today from our possible consultants about live streaming or archiving or in some way making those recordings available. Are we thinking that we're going to make Cole re-listen to the minutes for every question that comes up, or will we be able to listen to it ourselves?
I would think there's a way, I mean, I don't know, but, I mean, they're all digitally recorded. So if someone wanted to transcribe their, what we're trying to do, I think, from a staffing and cost perspective, we don't want to have the funds of this organization being used for someone sitting down and transcribing minutes.
Right.
So if someone feels as though something is missing from the minutes, they will have to transcribe that section, I'm assuming, to be accurately reflect what they said at the meeting. And I would guess we would have to determine from a technological perspective if we can cut out that section of the minute of the, what, if you wanted yours, Diane, we could cut out what you said and send it to you, and then you could type it up. I mean, that kind of thing.
This all sounds very cumbersome for Cole.
Yeah.
And there have been many questions that have come up right at the end of the IPP draft, and people from the public have contacted me because I'm a public representative, and I had to email Con and Cole and say, you know, this person has been trying to get this information, they were told it doesn't exist, then it was brought up in the minutes that, or something that it did exist, so what was said and what were the questions, and Cole had to look that up, and it would just be much more cost effective, I think, if an individual like me, who represents the public, could look that up and Cole wouldn't have to.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to get across.
Okay.
Would it simply, and I don't know if we've ever actually given any kind of direction in relation to how long minutes are retained in the digital recording. I mean, if we could just specify that we will maintain permanent record of the digital file, and that'll be made available upon request by any member of the public. And now their willingness to listen to that for 4 hours to get a quote out of there would be, of course, their responsibility. But I mean, having a permanent record of the digital file and the willingness to provide that upon request, I think will solve that. But as far as having to listen for that, to tally the motion and the outcome of the vote, I think that can just be, the summary kind of minutes that have been described.
One of the things that I talked about with Cole about this previously is that our Sarah's record retention policy would not necessarily require that it be kept for the whole 5 years of this planning cycle. However, given the fact that this is a 5-year cycle, we would want to keep a recording for the entire cycle so that it makes sense, because we're in a deliverable that is a building upon situation. So I think that what the River Authority would commit to is keeping the digital recordings for the whole cycle. And that way someone could go back and look at that. Is that what we talked about, correct, Cole? So if someone wanted to request that, then it could be sent out to them, and it would be their responsibility then to look at that. Doug, did you have a comment?
I think one of the things that Jimenez and Associates, who's going to now be part of our consulting team, was suggesting that, I think, hopefully they can bring to bear some good recording equipment, something that they could potentially even post on a website, maybe archive separately, and assume that responsibility and make that expense part of the consulting expense.
Okay. Did you have something?
I was gonna suggest, we can just archive them on the website, whoever wants to go to them, go to them.
Yeah, that's fine.
And they're up there as part of the administrative record of that planning cycle.
We can do that. We can check the website's availability to do that.
I like that idea. The only thing is I think we went from being very minimal in the amount of information in the minutes to being almost transcriptive, and I understand that there's probably an area in between. A lot of people are not going to want to have to ask for the recording. So I think that we need something kind of in between as far as the level of detail. But still, if you can get the audio online, that's great.
And I think what Con's proposal is that happy medium in the middle, that it's the agenda item, the general positions that were stated, kind of the discussion without attribution, just generally what was stated, then the action. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And then if someone wanted more specificity to that, or wanted their own comments attached, they could go and do their own transcription, submit it, sign it, and then there would have to be some validation on our part, on the administrator's part, to make sure that it accurately reflects it. Is that what you're saying?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
And Suzanne, as Diane demonstrated earlier in the beginning of the meeting, there's always that room to talk about the minutes. Is there anything you want to change or wrong? Then there's another opportunity.
All right, so I think, did we have a motion? I think you made a motion.
I just have one comment.
Okay.
Cole, ever since that you've taken the job over from Aaron, you've done a fantastic job because what the minutes that we're hoping that we get back to compared to what you have done, I just want to make sure that acknowledge you for a job well done, sir.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion? Someone made it.
It was Con.
Okay, Con made the motion,
And I seconded it.
and Robert seconded. Okay. All right. Everyone understanding what we're voting on? All right, all those in favor of the approach with the minutes as presented by Con, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. All right, great, thank you. We have consensus on that. All right, now we have the budget, number 12. Cole?
I'm passing fast.
I'm hurrying. Yes. Something's going on.
A little subtle hint.
Get the heck out of here. Okay, Cole.
So you have in front of you, in the packet, the administrator's budget. Nothing's changed. I put in there our budget over the past 5 years, and next to it, the actual expenses. So you can kind of gauge throughout the planning cycle how much is actually being spent and how much is actually being charged to those who contribute to the ILA. One thing I want to note, kind of a future item, is at the last planning group meeting, we discussed an ILA, a new ILA. That was before we discovered that we actually have another year in the current ILA. So at the next, in August, I think we're going to try to, by August, we're going to try to have an ILA together for you and start soliciting contributions to that and folks, member entities who want to contribute to that. Additionally, there's been a request to start issuing these invitations to contribute to the administrative budget on a quarterly basis. So we'll start, that'll be implemented in our common practice moving forward for the rest of this ILA period and then into the next. So you might receive a letter from Sarah, the administrator, asking you to contribute. If you do so, that will be subtracted from those who are already contributing as part of the contract, and it'll be factored into what we're charging those members as well. If that makes any sense. So right now, what the action is to approve the 2016 proposed budget, which is the yellow column on the far right. It's not different from the previous year, 2015. And so we're just going to keep it consistent with what we've been doing. We fell slightly within our budget this past year, but I don't anticipate as much getting within the $55,000 range like we did in 2015 this year, because last year required a lot of public meetings and such that required time and other services.
But we only bill based on actuals.
Right, exactly. So the actuals is what we bill retroactively after we've already approved those costs. So at the end of the quarter, when you receive a bill, that's for the administrator's budget, that's billed quarterly basis after we spend the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and so on. So what you're seeing right here it's not a breakdown quarterly, but annually.
Sort of a not to exceed amount.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So we need a motion in a second to approve the budget for 2016.
I'm sorry. Okay, so
Second.
John makes the motion. Kevin makes the second. Any questions about the budget?
Just a comment, as we go forward, it's been 58,000 since 2011. 2017 has got to be more expensive. just by the nature of the beast?
Well, we're trying to spread the wealth around, so any of you that would like to start giving, it would be great for those entities that have been giving. So please, really give it some consideration. I mean, I know that it's, a lot of the entities are small, and we understand that, but again, I think it gives the opportunity for all of us to be invested in what we're doing here. So any amount would be greatly appreciated from any entity that would like to do that.
I think we were actually, in our minutes, it said we were gonna talk this time about giving us a list of who had contributed in the past and the amounts and all of that. So those of us who are not familiar with that would know.
I think that's gonna be part of what, Cole, you're gonna be sending out after we start this process in August, right?
Right, so,
Okay.
so we're gonna have this, by August, we'll hopefully have an ILA, but before that, I can send out information about who's currently contributing.
Okay.
And I can actually send you a copy of the ILA, if that's appropriate for y'all. And then we'll start contacting members to start soliciting folks for contributing and getting those rates set going into this current cycle.
So we'll send the ILA out so everyone will know who's been contributing, and then a request for any of you that have not been to consider it. Okay? All right, so we have a motion on the table. All those in favor of supporting the budget, the administrator budget for calendar year 2016, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, great, thank you. All right, I think we've covered, we just went over the possible agenda items. Was there anything I should have covered that I didn't on that item while y'all were counting? I covered, we're gonna get the executive committee to look at, we're gonna look at Con's previous direction on the priorities. We're gonna look at the letter that we get from the Water Development Board to see if we need to adjust any of those priorities of the issues that we're gonna be taking up. We're gonna work with the executive committee to finalize that and send that out as a recommendation from the executive committee. And then we're gonna start the process in May about signifying the nomination process for the 2016 vacancies. Okay?
And also, TWDB mentioned that in May, they will come and do a presentation about using the service areas instead of political boundaries.
That will also be. Okay? Anything else for the agenda? All right, any public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to say I appreciated your discussion about reaching out to stakeholders. I'm Chip Dentz, and I'm representing the Texas Association of Builders. We're the stakeholders that will be building the communities and the homes for all this population you're proposing that will increase through the years. So I thank you for that. And we do have a water task force at the Texas Association of Builders, and I'm a member of that task force. And I appreciate your connectivity with us.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? All right, if not, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. We'll see you in May.
To see if Santa has ever